everybody. Welcome to the Burn with Mitch on 12 Ounce Sports here on this lovely day in Pennsylvania on Tuesday, May the 12th. We have, and the reason why I just played that song was because we have a special co-host tonight. I'm so happy that she's here. It is my daughter, Sarah, in from California. Asked her, whoop whoop. She wanted to know if, I just wanted to know if she wanted to help me co-host because we have a special guest coming on with us at 6:50. Her name is Jen Piacenti. And Jen, if you're listening, if I pronounced it wrong, I apologize. But Jen is a Sirius XM fantasy football guru. And she and Sarah are going to talk some fantasy football, some football, and specifically her Eagles, her Philadelphia Eagles. But before that, what I want to do is thank again our frontline workers, those of you who are working in the midst of this pandemic, trying to keep everybody healthy and doing what you have to do. All workers are essential. Thank you for doing what you do. And it is appreciated by everybody who is needing to get food, who wants to get their mail. Anybody in those particular areas, in those industries, it's very much appreciated. Know that. And though the curve is flattening, we know that unfortunately California, where Sarah is going to go back to, and Pennsylvania are still in the red. And Sarah, I just found out that California, the governor just said they may be staying home until July. Mm-hmm. Feel good about that, huh?
No.
No, I wouldn't either. And I don't feel good about what it's like here in Pennsylvania, but what's better? I don't understand the people who want to open up and risk getting this country into more trouble. So let's hope that doesn't happen, and maybe we'll have some baseball at some way, shape, or form like they were talking about today, beginning in July. And I know that Sarah and Jen, coming on later, will definitely hope that they have football with fans in August, September. That remains to be seen. All going to depend upon how things go. Baseball will be the guinea pig, and we'll see what happens. I hope there is baseball. There's a discrepancy amongst the owners and the players about how the players are going to get paid. People don't want to hear about. People don't really want to hear about the owners who are billionaires and many of the players who are millionaires fighting about money. It doesn't sit well with the fans, and let's just hope they can come to some kind of agreement and play baseball in July. So that's it for our welcome. Want to talk to you about our guests tonight. We've got three very different guests. Our first guest at 6:15 is Joan Ryan, and you can find Joan at Joan Ryan, JoanRyan. Joan is an award-winning author. She's written many books. The most recent that came out just a couple of weeks ago, and the one that we're going to discuss the most is called Intangibles, Unlocking the Science and Soul of Team Chemistry. So we're going to talk to Joan about where she started, who is Joan, what has she done, what she's covered, and she's covered a lot. If you read her bio, she's just Super Bowls and football and playoffs and all sorts of stuff. And she's written a book about, back in 95, making and breaking of elite gymnasts and ice skaters. So we're going to talk to her about that a little bit. And then a book about the Molina family, Benji Molina and that crew and the baseball family that are very good players. And again, we'll finish up with her with Intangibles. Interesting to talk to her about why she started, what interested her about this, and what coaches and supervisors and managers, not necessarily in the sports field, can learn from her. Joan will be followed up by Jen Piacenti. Like I said, Jen, if you're listening, if it's the wrong pronunciation, correct me when you come on. Jen has a very unique resume. Jen is a former model. I mean, she may be modeling now. I don't know. She was. I looked this up. She was. She has obviously. It sounds like a very amazing voice. So she's been a singer, an actor, and now she is on Sirius XM, host of a Sirius XM fantasy show, maybe even 2 or 3 or whatever. We'll talk to Jen about that. She and Sarah are going to talk a lot about football and the Eagles and the football draft and who she thinks are the teams to beat in the NFL in the upcoming 2020 season. And then finally at 7:25, we have a very unique individual, Jake Gronsky. By the way, you can find Jen at JenPiacenti. And then at 7:25, at Jake_Gronsky, that's JAKE_GRONSKY. Jake is a former Major League player in the Cardinal system turned author. And he also is a distinguished author, and I don't know that he's been writing that for that long, but he had a book voted 2018 Book of the Year by the Christian Independent Association. And his book, A Short Season, documented a very poignant story about a young man with a very rare disease who was able to have some of his dreams met. And Jake wrote about that. So we'll talk to Jake a little bit about that and other things that may be on the forefront for Jake as he continues his author career. So those are the guests tonight. Go find some friends to listen if you need to for any of these folks. Joan Ryan, Jen Piacenti, and Jake Gronsky. And again, before we start, a couple of bits of information about our sponsors. MyBookie, if you're a betting type, you can still bet at MyBookie. Not many sports, though I did watch some cornhole championship. One of our previous guests, Jay Corley, was in the tournament this past weekend from South Carolina. They were actually wearing masks as they were involved with their matches. There were no spectators where they were playing and tournamenting, if you will, this game. But I wonder if you can bet on cornhole. Maybe Jay can tell us. So if you're interested in doing that, go to the MyBookie platform, mybookie.com. They have experienced and skilled online gaming professionals. Provide you with a unique and personalized stress-free gaming experience, whether you play on sports or casino games or horse racing. Incentives are offered, the industry-leading bonuses and special promotions. Use promo code 12OZ Sports for a deposit bonus of up to $1,000. Hopefully baseball will come back soon, and other sports, as we mentioned, and then perhaps concerts, theaters, sporting events, family shows. We shall see. If they do, when they do, you can go to SeatGiant.com. SeatGiant's got a huge marketplace. They got over 3 million tickets in their inventory, and they have a great guarantee if you're a client and you buy through them. It's amazing. They stand behind the client 100%. You will receive a 100% refund for your tickets if your order was accepted but not delivered by the seller, if your order was accepted but not delivered in time for the event, or if your tickets, for some reason, are not valid for entry. And they don't stop there. SeatGiant has a 100% money-back guarantee if your event is canceled and not rescheduled. So maybe you bought some tickets through SeatGiant for some baseball games or some basketball or some hockey. Who knows what's going to happen? We know the teams, luckily the teams, I know the Phillies have sent me an email and said, hey, you want a refund? You want to keep your tickets on credit? They're doing that, but SeatGiant also will do that. So if you need a ticket to any event in North America, think SeatGiant. Make a purchase on SeatGiant and use promo code 12OZ Sports for discounts on tickets. Okay, those are our folks. And Jazz Sports, we'll talk more about Jazz Sports as we get a break here. We're going to have Joan coming on in just a few minutes. I don't want to interrupt my sponsor read if Joan does happen to call a little bit early, so we'll talk more about Jazz Sports in a bit. Also a wagering platform, online gaming. So, Major League Baseball and the players have to work this thing out. Um, like I said, we don't know where it's going to end up. If they're smart, they'll work it out. Because when they canceled the World Series way back when, and it was because of money, people didn't come back because they saw that the players and the owners were being very greedy. And we can't afford to be doing that right now when people are in the situations that they're in. Unemployment is up, as we all know. People are having a hard time. People aren't back to work. People want to get back to work. So if baseball players are smart, and I'll talk to Jake a little bit about this too, because he has some inner knowledge about this. We want baseball back, and we want it back on the earliest date possible. So, Sarah, what are you excited for tonight about talking to Jen about?
Let's talk about definitely having the season. We're not going to have that season suspended. We need football.
So football, right?
We need football. The draft, and I think she may be a Cowboys fan.
Oh, man. Yeah, we were doing a little bit of snooping on Jen to see...
Power of social media.
Yeah, social media, as we all know, gives us information that we might not want to see or we want to see. So Jen's going to have to talk to us about her fandom and talk about the Cowboys if we have to. And this ought to be a fun conversation with her if that, in fact, is true, that she is a Cowboys fan. America's team. I don't think so. I don't think it's America's team anymore. How many people really rooting for the Cowboys? I don't know. I know that not many people on the East Coast are. Not many people on the West Coast are. Not many people in the North are. Then in the South, you got a bunch of teams. You got Atlanta, you got Houston, you got Tampa Bay. You got all sorts of teams going down there. And I sure hope that we don't continue to call Dallas Cowboys America's team. No, not happening. Football is not, I will not say America's pastime. Baseball is. Now my daughter sitting here next to me will disagree. But we all have our special interests. We all have our likes and dislikes, our loves and our not loves. Sarah loves football. Loves football. Her dad, me, I love baseball. Her twin sister, my social media manager, Kelsey, loves baseball. Not so much into football. Hello, who do I have on the line?
It's Joan Ryan.
Hello, Joan. How are you?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm doing fine. Doing really good. Joan, where are you calling from?
I'm calling from Sausalito, just north of San Francisco.
Oh, way across the country.
Yeah.
California.
Yep. Is it Jennifer?
No, my daughter?
Yeah.
Sarah.
Sarah.
Hi, so
Sorry.
nice to meet you.
You too. Yeah, I saw on Twitter you were going to be on. Do you guys do the show together all the time?
No, Sarah is home from California, celebrating Mother's Day last weekend, and her birthday is Saturday with her twin sister. So we said, come on home. And her flight had 18 people on it, social distance like crazy. So it was all good.
That's great. And where are you in California, Sarah?
I live in Los Angeles.
Okay.
So, that's a crazy time right now with everything going on. And I'm sure same in North Carolina or North California. That's Northern Cal is where you are, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So how are things out there, Joan? What's it like?
Oh, it's good. good. You know, I mean, certainly downtown San Francisco, like downtown everywhere,
Yeah.
you know, is just not, you know, it's ghost town. But, you know, it's been fine, and I've been busy promoting the book.
Mhm.
So it's, you know, doing a lot of radio and podcasts and some Zoom things. So it's quite a different, you know, promotion than my previous 4 books.
Yeah, I've talked to so many authors. And you know what's great about what I've been doing, Joan? People like yourself. Mitchell Nathanson last week, Anika Arak,
Yeah.
Jared Diamond. I have 5 books piled up on my bookcase. I had Ann King. She sent me her book about Ted Williams and the Cloudbusters, about World War II. So it's been, for me, as a sports nut, specifically baseball, amazing. I love it. I love talking to you guys because once in a while you do a fantasy, I need to write a book. But there's no way I have the patience or the ability to do that. So,
Other than that,
yeah, besides that, so I really I love a connection with authors. And authors where the topic is so interesting to me. So I'm so glad to be able to talk to you. So glad that you're able to take a few minutes with me to talk about you and your books. And we're going to get to Intangibles in a minute. But I wanted to know first about Joan Ryan, the person, and where you started. And if you can take me from the beginning of when you got into all this writing and stuff, and then we're going to go to what I want to do, if we can, is go to, because I'm an Olympic lover, gymnastics and skating. So I wanted to learn a little bit more about making and breaking of elite gymnastics and skaters,
Mm-hmm.
and then we'll skip to come to Intangibles. Does that sound good?
That sounds great.
Okay, because I really want to promote your book because it just came out, and it's, you know, unlocking the science and soul of team chemistry. And I told Sarah before we came on, I said, I'll tell her what team chemistry is, and I'll tell you about that in a minute. And you wouldn't have had to spend all the time writing a book. I could just tell you, but we'll get to that in a minute.
That would have been easy. Where were you when I needed you, Mitch?
No, Joan, you have more information. You're a lot smarter than I am. All right, so tell me about Joan from the beginning of your career what you've done as your career out of school, let's say.
Okay, you know, so I majored in journalism at University of Florida, but I never thought I would be a writer, frankly. Even though, you know, I was a voracious reader growing up and all of that, but I was painfully introverted and couldn't even imagine, you know, putting my name on a story, much less, you know, going out and interviewing people. But long story short, you know, I got a job right away at a newspaper because God knows nobody else wanted to be a copy editor. You know, everybody wanted to be Woodward and Bernstein back then, you know. And, you know, so I was on the news desk for, you know, a year maybe. And I just thought, well, you know, I better get some writing experience if I'm ever going to move up in the journalism game. And I always thought, you know, I was a big sports fan, and I always thought the best writing in a newspaper day in and day out was in the sports section, and it was interesting and fun and all that. And having said that, as I'm sure, you know, both of you would probably agree, some of the worst writing in the newspaper is in the sports section as well. Mm-hmm. So I landed in the sports section, you know, in the early 80s, and there had never been a woman in the sports section of Orlando Sentinel, and so I was on the copy desk there for a while, and then, you know, went out and did a story here, a story there, and soon discovered that was way more fun than sitting in the office from, you know, 3 to midnight, which was basically, you know, our hours. And so I ended up, you know, being able to put that reporter's notebook in my hand, which was like the golden ticket to talk to anybody. Right? Yeah. You know, people will actually answer you if you've got that reporter's notebook and a pen in your hand. Right. So I didn't have to be me. I just had to be this person who happened to be holding a reporter's notebook. So anyway, then I ended up in San Francisco, became a full-time sports columnist, you know, way before I was ready for it. But, you know, so I was at San Francisco Examiner for 10 years, close to 10 years. Took a leave of absence to write Little Girls in Pretty Boxes about the gymnasts and figure skaters.
Mm-hmm.
And when I came back, the Chronicle offered me a better job, and so I became a sports columnist at the Chronicle.
Wow.
Stayed there from 96 to 2007, covered every, name a major sporting event, I covered it as
Yes.
a columnist.
Wow.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so it was a super, super fun job. And then, went to op-ed page. After a while, though, frankly, it was like, well, if it's September, it's football season, and now April, it's baseball. It started to get a little bit ordinary
Right,
in a
okay.
way,
Mhm.
and I didn't feel like I was pushing myself or challenging myself. I wasn't learning a lot of new things. So I went to the newsroom, wrote op-eds, and then in 2006, my son suffered a severe brain injury, and so I had to take like a year off. And when I came back, my heart just wasn't in it anymore. I wanted to spend time with him. So I wrote a book about that, and then have just been writing books and working for the San Francisco Giants as their media consultant.
Yeah, I read it. I did see that too, which is probably a pretty cool job. I want to learn a little bit about that. All right, so let's go to, and I'm sorry about your son. That's had to have been, oh my gosh, I don't know how, you deal.
Yeah,
right? You deal. You have to. You have no choice,
You
right?
absolutely, you're a parent. That's exactly well said. You just deal.
Yeah, you have to do that. So Little Girls in Pretty Boxes. What motivated you? What was your inspiration to write a book about these kids?
Well, it was 1992, and the Barcelona Olympics were coming up, and I sat down with my editor, Glenn Schwartz, my sports editor, and we were just brainstorming about story ideas, frankly. And I always was thinking about how these young gymnasts and figure skaters, but mostly the gymnasts, because we were going into the Summer Olympics, that they're so young and so tiny, but they're training and performing as if they were Michael Jordan and Joe Montana, right?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, they were the elite of the best in the world at
Yes.
what they did. And so, every project or book I've ever done, and this is true for most people, starts with a question or two that you're just, then on a quest to answer. And the question I had was, what does this training and stress do to bodies that are still developing
Right.
and psyches that are still developing?
Mm-hmm.
And these girls mostly aren't going to school, and so what's the price they pay?
Exactly.
And so that's what got me motivated, and I wrote two really big stories over a couple of days for the Examiner. And long story short, an agent came to me and said, you really should make this into a book. And I resisted
Okay.
as much as I could, but she kept taking me out to lunch, and I said, oh, well, we'll just write a proposal. And I wrote a terrible proposal, which, became a pattern for me with all 5 books. I write terrible proposals. And she just, kept pushing me. And
Right.
so, and, you guys, probably will relate to this, that once I started getting rejection letters from publishers, even though I wasn't enthusiastic about writing a book, all of a sudden every competitive bone in my body, was thrumming and
Yep.
saying, oh no, you're not saying no to me.
Right.
So
Uh-huh.
all of a sudden I really wanted to write a book.
And what was what did you find out about these kids? What was something that really hit you hard, let's say?
Well, what got to be so difficult about continuing the research and doing interview after interview after interview was the horrific sameness of the experience of these girls, and just how their parents forgot they were parents.
Yeah.
The parents were supposed to be their advocates and their safety net, and the parents get so sucked into this really warped subculture of elite gymnastics. And I always want to remind people who are listening that all I'm talking about is elite gymnastics,
Right.
not like kids gymnastics, which is wonderful. And these parents get sucked in, and this, the abnormal becomes normal.
Yeah.
So what they're watching their children being berated by these coaches,
Yes.
being told that they're fat, that they're lazy, that they're just pretending they're in pain, and just buck up, get back on the balance beam. And the parents, look around them and just say, well, yeah, maybe I'm not mother of the year, but I'm not as bad as this mother next to me.
Everybody's
She's worse.
comparing the worst to the worst, right?
Right. And so I would just feel like, I'd look at these girls, and they loved gymnastics when they started. They're driven. They're those special people in the world that are so focused and driven to excel, and obviously have the physical ability to do it. And all of that, incredible drive and focus and love for the sport then gets perverted, that's twisted toward this unrealistic goal, and this sense of now you're driven by fear of failure,
Yes.
fear of letting your parents down because they've spent all this money on you. And it was tragic. And, I've covered boxing, I've covered, the NFL. Truly, elite gymnastics was the most brutal sport I've ever seen in my life.
That's interesting. And that's so interesting. And I see that because when I look at a professional athlete now, okay, and it's rare that you'll get these kids who are 19 in baseball, and that's where the youngest ones in hockey come up. And even, okay, we'll go to NBA too. It takes time for them to mature and to understand what the professional life is, and to get into the mindset of performing under all this pressure. But these kids are 14, 15, 16. How can they've gone, as you said, to get to that elite NBA, MLB, NFL, NHL level? That takes training in both, not just necessarily physically, but emotionally and mentally. But they have time in the junior leagues and in the minor leagues and in college basketball to prepare that way. These girls don't, right? So
No.
that had to, yes, it's got to take a stress and strain, but yet you look at parents, you go, parents, what are you doing? So I can definitely see what that was like, what that was about.
Right. Yeah, and some of the parents did, especially the mothers, because they were generally the driving forces. That the parents didn't start out that way. They think they're doing the best thing for their really, really super talented daughter.
Yeah.
And then, it's the frog in the pot. Suddenly it's boiling and you don't even notice because it happens so incrementally, right?
Yeah.
So they really looked back, and they were a lot of them anyway were appalled at their behavior once they had some distance from it.
Interesting.
And I was happy.
Yeah.
That they felt that way.
Mm-hmm.
That they were appalled at their own behavior.
Well, and if anything, that was a goal that you didn't necessarily have in mind from writing the book, but I guess it happened, right? Let these people be aware.
Right. And what I was really shocked about was how open people were with their stories. And, what I discovered was that almost nobody had ever asked them about it.
Oh,
They could never talk about it because they sounded like complainers, and aren't you, boy, you're just not tough enough, and you're only talking about it because you didn't make it to the Olympics. Right. Mm-hmm. And so the book became, here's what, when you're watching the Olympics and all of the, sparkle in their hair and the up close and personal, and they're all smiling and their coaches are just lifting them up in the bear hug.
Yeah.
Here's what you didn't see,
Yes.
and these were the bodies, stacked like cordwood along the path to the Olympics, as all these other girls fell over, and then just those 6 made it.
Right.
Did you explore at all any, long-term effects that this had on the young girls that were, put through all of this?
Yeah, I mean, a lot of it's anecdotal from the girls themselves, and some of it, some of the studies, because there's like, there are more studies now, but there were like no studies about gymnastics. But the studies I could refer to were ballet dancers.
Exactly, and that's why
Because
I was gonna say, because I was a classically trained ballerina when I was made from starting six to, and I had the decision if I wanted to actually continue to be a professional ballerina because they were training me to be one, but I wasn't going to school and I was, constantly training all the time at such a young age. And that's why I was relating a lot to what you were saying because I feel like it's just some of the things that the women would tell me, that I was too fat at 10, 10 years old.
I know. The eating disorders. Oh my God, in ballet, as you know. I mean, in one study I looked at, some of these young ballet dancers were literally eating Kleenex.
Oh my goodness.
Because it could make them feel, take away that hunger pang without having any calories.
Yes.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh. All right, let's segue to intangibles. And I wrote down a note while you were talking, Joan, about team chemistry and what unlocking the science of it, and I see a little juxtaposition, and you can help me with this. Explain about the intangibles that do you is yelling at players and berating them and telling them that they're not good help to build team chemistry? Rhetorical question you could answer in a minute, but I'm going to tell you my simple answer, which could have saved you the time writing the book, but you really wanted to write the book, so ignore what I'm saying to a degree. To me, it's all about relationships. Is that so? Let's take it from there.
Yeah.
Right? Take it from there. I've been on teams, senior league team, men's baseball teams, and that kind of thing, and I've watched teams play for all my entire life. How did the book come about? Number one, what urged you on to write this book, and what came out of it?
Well, let me go to what you started with, which is relationships, and that is exactly what it is. I mean, what I discovered was a study of team chemistry is a study of human behavior, human nature, human evolution, right? And guess what? Everything is about relationships. I mean, if you are human, we are hardwired for relationships.
Yeah.
So once you understand how the brain works, to answer, now to back up just a little bit, the question, I told you about the question that drove little girls in pretty boxes. So the questions that drove intangibles was, in 2009, I started thinking about this, from going to a reunion of the 1989 Giants World Series team. And in 2009, walking through the party tent and, reconnecting with all those guys, because that was a team that I covered, and just seeing in their eyes and hearing in their voices that they still loved each other. And the term team chemistry kept coming up, which we all toss around all the time. And when I was driving home, I thought, well, what is it? I mean, we were in these, we're in the analytics era, and we were in 2009 because Moneyball had already come out.
Right.
That in this age, well, does team chemistry exist, or is it just a lazy explanation for every team that overachieved? Right. In retrospect, we say, oh, they had team chemistry because they went out to dinner. They all went
Right,
together,
exactly.
right? So does it exist? If it exists, what is it? And then the real key question, frankly, was how does that affect performance? Because if it doesn't elevate the performance of the team, why are we even talking about it? So how do you take, what we consider to be a psychological phenomenon or emotional social phenomenon and say, how does that translate into the physical performance of a team?
Right.
And so that was the ambitious quest I set out on. And again, it goes back to relationships. So when you start to study neuroscience and evolutionary biology and organizational psychology and all the science of it, what you start with and what's the foundation of team chemistry is that we are the most social species that has ever walked the earth.
Right.
And over 3 million years, as our brain quadrupled in size, it didn't grow to house, all our intellectual capacities, although obviously we have those. It kept adding rooms to itself. That brain just kept adding more rooms to accommodate all the social wiring because we needed each other to survive. So our wiring, we are open loop creatures in which we are not made complete except in relationship. And if you start to notice, and this was, God, one of the most I took away so many fascinating things that I just use in my own life,
That's
right?
great, yeah.
That when, we are, we evolved to be able to signal each other non-verbally in 1,000 different ways, just an eyebrow. There are certain facial muscles we have no control over, but if you're really watching, you can see somebody's emotions play out in those facial muscles as much as they may be trying to keep a blank face. They can't.
Right.
Tone of voice, all of it. And so when we are in somebody else's company, and I want to hear your own examples of this, okay?
Okay.
There are people that you're with that you feel funnier with, you feel smarter with, suddenly like you're more articulate,
Right.
or maybe you can't think of anything to say with those people, or you feel less than with those people. So you are actually a different person with every single person you are in relationship with, even if it's somebody you're talking with on an airplane.
Yeah.
Totally.
You're reading their signals, they're reading yours, and it's a 1,000 tiny recalibrations back and
It's
forth,
true.
back and forth, back
Yeah.
and forth,
Mhm.
right?
Yeah.
And I know, I'm not a naturally funny person, but there are a couple of friends where I am truly a funny person.
Yes.
See, you made me laugh. That's good. No,
So-
I get it.
Yeah.
And one of my examples, and I've been at this school, S-Town School, for 5 years, and I told my bosses last year, and I still am. These people are my coworkers, these teachers. I'm not necessarily a teaching faculty member. They're so smart, way above me, and I do get intimidated. And depending upon who on the staff I'm talking to, it's all about being comfortable. But it's also, again, I'm comfortable. The more comfortable I am with the person, it's because I know a little bit more about them, and that's the relationship, right? I've got 7-8 minutes to go.
Okay.
Briefly, without giving all the secrets away in the book, what are some tips? What did you find? What are the keys to team chemistry? What's the soul? What's the soul of it?
Yeah. What is the soul of it? Well, the foundation, is biological. That was one thing I didn't realize, that team chemistry is a biological construct.
Okay.
Because we affect each other's heart rates, hormones, all of that. There's a certain amount of common sense to team chemistry, right?
Mm-hmm.
In that when you look at the military, no entity understands team chemistry more than the military. No entity has done more research than the military on team chemistry. And you look at, well, why is there boot camp, right? And
Yeah.
why do they make it so miserable? Well, one thing is hardship pulls us together.
That's right. Yep.
And because we're in hardship, we have to figure out how to trust each other. And trust and caring are huge and essential in team chemistry. And then when you're out on that battlefield, right, you are no longer, and every soldier will tell you that who has been in the heat of battle, that you are not fighting for God and country. You're fighting for the guy next to you.
Yep.
Always, 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 right?
Yes.
And there's a version of that in teams, in offices. that you become close enough and you're in a culture in which there's almost a gravitational pull toward each other, that bends toward each other and toward your shared purpose.
Mm-hmm.
And your commitment to that purpose becomes commitment to each other.
Right.
And what that does physiologically is that if you are not playing for, in baseball, right, 162 games, and you're thinking, oh, if we get to the end of the season, get to the playoffs, man, that's a tough thing to be just motivated for every single day.
Mm-hmm.
So you have to be motivated by something much closer at hand, and that is your teammate.
Right.
Definitely.
Wanting
And
to
Jake
go.
Peavy,
Go ahead.
just one thing, that Jake Peavy, the pitcher, Cy Young Award pitcher, who played for the Giants, and I was asking him about, why would team chemistry matter for him? Because he always plays at 100%. Anybody who's seen him pitch, he is just that snorter and guy screaming at himself, and he's got 100%. And so, Jake, why does it matter to you? You can't give more than 100%. And he told me something that then guided me the rest of the time I was writing this book. He said, my teammates bring out a fight in me I can't willingly summon for myself.
Wow, I love that.
And it goes right, don't you love that?
Yes.
It goes right to that. We complete each other. We're not totally complete, that other people can bring more out of us.
Mm-hmm.
I love that.
So my men's senior baseball team won 3 games in 3 years.
Oh, God.
I got tired of losing. I was a pretty good player. I played left field. I could hit the ball. And year after year, but here's the thing. I love playing with this group. We would come together on the field, 8:30 in the morning on a Saturday. We're going to try and win this game. Okay?
Yeah.
First inning, we're down, 6-0. We're like, oh, crap, here we go again. But the fact of the matter is, it was fun talking to each other about the baseball, about other subjects, about what's going on in the game. And we knew each other that well. And we weren't relegated to, okay, we're going to lose this game. We all hated to lose. But we did come together as a group because we weren't that good. And every week we came together because we knew each other and we played hard. And we didn't grit on anybody else's butt if we made a mistake because we knew that was going to be it's part of the game. You're going to make mistakes. But that's what we're saying is we developed the relationship and an understanding, and my teammates would pull me out of a hole if I made a mistake, and they would pound me on the back if I did something well. And whether we were losing, which most of the time we were, or on that rare case that we were winning. So yeah, I totally get that. Trust and caring.
But one thing,
Yeah.
if I can interject for 1 second, is that chemistry is active. So, like, the product has to improve. You don't have chemistry unless the product improves. So
Okay.
maybe you didn't lose 20-0, but you lost 10-0.
Right.
So it doesn't mean you had to win, but the product has to conclude. Otherwise, you just have camaraderie, and
I
they're not
gotcha.
interchangeable.
Oh wow, that's so
Yeah.
interesting. I need to
All
read
right,
this
very
entire
good.
book. The
Sarah's
entire
going
book.
to want to get the book.
I need to
So
get the book.
one of the things, Joan, and I told Sarah before you came on, was that, as you said, it's not just sports. It's anybody who's involved in a group as a team, in an office setting, in a class, anywhere you have a group of people working towards a common goal is the basis for this, right?
Right, and a lot of people can work toward a common goal and not have chemistry at all.
Right.
Exactly.
So chemistry is very, very, very nuanced. It's a complex dynamic, not a complicated one. So it's complex like an ecosystem. You change one thing and a million other things can change within that ecosystem, right?
Yep.
And some of it's unpredictable. So I think, even though I've written this 272 page book and I've done 10 years of research, I know this is so complex. I've only scratched the surface.
Yeah.
But it's a really fun read because every chapter brings you into a different clubhouse and locker room
Nice.
and the characters and how they interact. And So it's a good fun read that'll make you think of it in a very different way.
And I love the way that you bring science into it. That is so interesting to
Yeah.
me. I was a communication major, and I know we only have a few minutes, but I was a communication major, and the way that you would speak about people communicating and the way that they would communicate with each other and all the science that you were saying behind everything is so interesting. And I think that's a really huge draw into your book because you have researched it. You've spent 10 years.
10 years. Whew.
You know, that is just
Yeah,
so
I mean,
awesome.
there's not a book out there like this, but I hope other people do and keep building on it. And I hope you read it, Sarah.
I definitely will.
Well, we'll get a no. Listen, Joan, we're going to get a book for sure. We may have to fight over who reads it first. But here's the thing. Maybe Sarah can get it first, and it'll be an excuse for me to come to California to get and read the book there, or pick it up.
Oh,
You know, how about that? And then maybe you and I can meet in Culver City where Sarah is, and we can talk about it.
yeah, that's a long way from me.
That is a long
but
way
if
from me.
Yeah, if I happen to be in Culver City, I definitely will call you.
Please do.
Definitely.
Please do. I'll give you my number. All right, Joan. Listen. It was an absolute pleasure. You're so nice, and you're so the way you described it. You know, in layperson's terms, and the way you talk is the way you write. So I'm looking forward to it because even though it's science and chemistry, I know that again, if it's baseball based and it's stories in essence, I will love it.
Well, let me know. After you read it, I want to hear what you think.
Okay,
Totally.
absolutely, right, Sarah?
Totally.
We'll do that.
I totally will.
All right, Joan.
Okay, you got my email, you got my number.
I do.
All right, stay in touch.
Thank you so
Will
much,
do, Joan.
Joan.
Thank you very much for taking the time. Stay safe out there, and at some point, I tell all my guests want to meet and meet in person at some point.
Great, I'd love it.
That'd
Thanks,
be awesome.
Joan.
Great interview.
Thank you very much.
Okay.
I appreciate it. Take care now.
Bye.
Okay, take care. Bye
Bye-bye.
bye.
That was
Wow,
so,
so
fun.
much information.
That was so much fun.
So much. I mean, I love psychology, and a lot of that is what this is too, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's psychology and relationships, and that's what I'm all
And
about.
communication and
Well, and the other thing she said that she mentioned was the nonverbal communication. And when I was teaching youth sports and coaches clinics, one of the things that we reviewed was nonverbal communication with the players.
Mm-hmm.
Players pick up on that, and it sends them a signal, and you may not know you're doing it. But so coaches, the point was coaches have to understand that they may be sending signals that aren't positive signals. And especially if it was the dad and the kid was out there, and you could always tell the kid would look at the dad for reassurance, and it wasn't very good, I'm hoping this is Jen. It's empty. Hello, Jen. How are you?
I'm great. How are you?
I'm so good, Jennifer.
hi, Jen.
Hi, what's up, Sarah?
Yeah, how are you?
I'm awesome. What's going on, y'all?
Well, we're hanging out here outside of Philadelphia. Sarah came home for Mother's Day, and her birthday's with her twin sister on Saturday. So
That's awesome.
yeah, we're excited about that. And then lucky me, I get to go out. She's going back on Sunday, and I am. We looked at. She's going to be moving to a new apartment 4 blocks from where she is now. And Jen, guess who gets to go out and help her move?
I'm guessing that'd be you.
Her dad. Yes, I get to go to California.
It's really beautiful right now. I have
know.
to tell you.
Oh,
So
I'm
what-
so mad. I'm
Jen,
not
where are
there.
you? Where are you now?
I'm in Hollywood.
You are. Jen, what are you
Yeah.
doing? Jen, what are you doing on May 28th?
Don't answer that. You don't have
You
to
want
answer
to
that,
help us
Jen.
move?
No, Jen. Don't answer that.
I mean, extra help. I'll get you some Starbucks. We'll have lunch. We'll talk more serious XM, NFL, fantasy, whatever you want. I'm open.
Okay.
Okay.
Sarah, you heard it. I have a witness, Jen. I have a
Perfect.
witness. So, Jen, how's family? I know I've mentioned your dad, right? He's a big influence in your life, right?
he is a big influence in my life. I'm really lucky to have a good relationship with my dad. I think it's so awesome that you guys do too. I mean, dads and daughters, is there anything better than that?
No,
you
nothing.
know? Nothing. I mean, it's so special to get to have that. And I think it makes us, we have such an advantage when we have great fathers, because we grew up with the right kind of self-respect and feeling like strong women and, you know, like we're loved, and it's great. And plus we get to share sports with our dads. How cool is that?
So cool.
Yes, Jen, that's awesome. So, Jen, I'm going to waver off of the sports for just a second because we were creeping on you.
Yeah.
Sorry. Jen, you are, I'm safe because I have daughters. I know you know that.
Okay.
You are talented, my friend. You sing,
Oh, thank you.
you act.
Yeah,
Oh my gosh.
I do.
Jen,
Thank you.
Tell us everything. What do you do?
Holy mackerel. Opera, though, and in New York.
Yeah.
Oh, don't be embarrassed. This is cool. This is really cool. Tell us
I
about
have
that.
had a very strange pathway. So I get this question like, how did you start in fantasy work? And
Right.
the truth is that I just kind of fell into it because I loved it and I was having so much fun. I actually lived in New York for a really long time. I only recently moved to LA, and I moved to New York to pursue, you know, the whole singing, acting career. And I was very fortunate, and I did sing with New York City Opera, and I did sing with the New York Gilbert and Sullivan Players for about 15 years, and I toured the country, and yeah, it was
cool.
pretty incredible. And I got to meet a lot of really cool people. But at the same time, because I was in New York, I had the advantage of, it's kind of a funny story. Somebody that came to see me in a show actually sent me like fan mail and said, hey, I noticed from your social media that you love baseball, and I promise I'm not weird. Your executive director knows me. You can ask him. But I need help with my fantasy baseball team, and it seems like you know a lot. And it turns out this guy wasn't just in a fantasy baseball league. He was in a big league with a lot of hedge fund guys, and they flew in auctioneers every year, and one of those guys was Jason Collette, who is a tout. So I got to know all the touts, as you know, the whole like expert leagues in baseball, and got invited to some semi-professional leagues, if you will, and basically the rest is history. And it's just been a blast, and I've been really, really lucky to just have a lot of great friends and a lot of support. And, you know, sometimes you have to have other jobs in between, but if you follow what you really love, then you don't really work a day in your life. It's true.
It's exactly right. So you went, so you started kind of, was it just start in baseball and then you moved over to football, that kind of thing?
That's
now?
right.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. Baseball's the thing I've done the longest and the most, and that I have the deepest knowledge of. And now I do football, and I love football. But yeah, so those are my two sports. I don't do a lot with NBA or anything like that, but baseball and football are my fave.
All right, so I love you already because we would get along together great. Again, taking you to Starbucks, I'll handle the baseball discussion. Sarah can handle the football discussion.
I would have a blast.
We would have a great time. All right, but here's the question Sarah has to ask you.
Okay.
Ready?
Yes. Are you a Cowboys fan?
Yes.
I saw.
Oh, now there goes the Starbucks. Okay, we're done.
That's true. Yeah.
How?
I am.
What? Can you
But how can you blame me? I grew up in Dallas.
Okay.
I grew up in Dallas, and at the time, you know, Emmitt Smith was a big deal. Troy Aikman was a big deal. I lived through, you know, I grew up on those Super Bowls and the silver and white. And remember, I grew up in Texas, so football is very
Of course, yes. Yeah.
Even at the high school level,
Oh my gosh,
competitive, and every Friday night at the football game. And so I have to love the Dallas Cowboys. It's in my blood, you know?
Yeah. I will forgive you for that, since you actually grew up
Okay.
there.
Thank you. Because I will tell you that it's funny, since I started working at Fantasy Alarm, I found there are so many Cowboys fans, and they're from New York or they're from LA. And I'll say, wait a second, how did you become a Cowboys fan?
Yeah.
Everybody has a story. But I'm kind of like, but I came by it honestly. Like,
I actually grew up with it.
there.
Yeah.
That's true. That's the thing. I mean, I am. All right, so I'll go over real quickly my sports just to kind of piggyback on that. So I'm obviously a Phillies fan. I grew up in Philly, moved to New York, then Houston, but I came back to Philly. But Phillies are my baseball team.
Oh, Houston! Wow, we'll have to talk about that too.
Yes, we will. Yeah, Sarah and Kelsey, my twins, the girls were born in Houston.
Oh wow.
Yeah, we actually lived through that Houston Oilers debacle against the Buffalo Bills.
Oh.
Oh my
yeah.
gosh. Anyway, football. I am. I used to be living in. I lived in North Jersey, so Joe Willie Namath and that Jets team, and the Jets for years were my team. I had a phenomenal sports year in '69-'70. It was, I had the Mets because I was a Mets fan then. I had the Eagles, and I had the Mets, the Knicks, and the Jets. I mean, that was my year. I could have died and gone to heaven. My sports excitement would have been done. But I'm here in the Eagles. I'm more of an Eagle critic, and Sarah will attest to that. I'd like to see them win, but if they do something stupid, I beat the crap out of them. Not so big into basketball at all. I just don't like the sport the way it's played now. And then hockey, like you, I am a Ranger fan living in Philadelphia. Don't know much about the Rangers until this year. They're rebuilding, and they have some really great players. But I like watching the Flyers because I love watching hockey, and they have a good young team too. So Ranger fan living in Philadelphia because I grew up in North Jersey, and I can't give that up, especially back in the 60s when there were all sorts of fighting going on, and it was awesome. It's a lot of fun. Anyway, I need you and Sarah to talk football right now. It's you and
Let's do
Sarah.
it. I want to
What? Go ahead, Jen.
No, Jen,
ask
go.
me. I wanted to ask Sarah what she thought about the Jalen Hurts pick. I want to know what
Okay.
you
Good
think they
question.
were thinking.
So you're going to think I'm crazy, but I actually loved that pick. And I know that's
Okay.
completely different than popular belief, but I usually have a different opinion than most Philly fans. I loved that pick. I think that Wentz is our franchise quarterback for sure, but we need a backup. We need someone who can play when Wentz is hurt because Wentz is going to get hurt.
But he might not get hurt.
And-
He lasted 16 games.
And then what happened? The
It was a cheap
first
shot.
playoff game,
It was
he
a
gets
cheap
hurt.
shot.
So that is what do you think about it? What was your thoughts?
Well, when it happened, I think everybody was like, "Wait a second, isn't Carson Wentz your guy? Do you have to
Totally.
do this?" But I think that you're right. But when you look back at it, it's the same thing Cowboys were saying. Like, why did you guys go get Andy Dalton? Aren't you going to pay Dak? It has nothing to do with that. And by the way, did you notice the Cowboys made that move after you guys got Jalen Hurts?
100%.
100%.
100% I noticed.
That was so much coincidence, like why not have the best backup quarterback you can basically have? And in the Phillies case, they went and got somebody that they can groom to be someone good in the future.
Exactly.
So, I mean, it's not a bad pick at all. I think it confused a lot of people, but I hear a lot of people saying they think they're just going to use him for gadget plays and all that. I don't think so.
No. Here was the complaint by most people, including myself, with that. Why, when you had other needs on this team, Sarah, don't talk. See what I got to go through, Jen? When you have other needs, like a receiver, like the secondary, like safeties, even a defensive line, why are you doing this? Why couldn't you have gotten a decent quarterback that would have played the role of backup in the next several or 2 or 3 rounds? That's what people were complaining about. It didn't make sense in that round.
Totally, but did you see what the Cowboys did to us with the one pick that we wanted and we didn't end up getting? CD, I think you guys picked up CD, the wide receiver, right before our pick, and we were actually going to take him. And then we took Reagan instead because the Cowboys stole our because the Cowboys stole our pick.
Well, I like that you took Rager because I'm a TCU girl. So,
Yeah, you are. That's right, yeah.
I like that pick. But yeah, my other question to you is, what do you guys think they're going to do about running backs? There's so many rumors right now. Is it going to be Carlos Hyde, Devonta Freeman, LaShawn McCoy, like a homecoming? Do you have any wants? Like, who do you want it to be?
I know this is an unpopular opinion again, but I have been voting for Carlos Hyde to be a part of our team since last year. I think that we should have picked him up last year when everything happened, and I think that now I don't even do you know if they actually picked him up? It's just in talks, right?
They haven't. They haven't yet. Yeah, it's
Okay.
just talks. And
Yeah.
then this morning, the reports came out that they're maybe also talking to Devonta Freeman and Carlos Hyde.
Oh,
I'm sorry,
Devonta
and
Freeman too, huh?
Sean McCoy.
Well, Deshaun Jackson is
Yeah.
being a huge advocate for McCoy right now.
Of course
He
he
wants
is.
them both to come back and play a huge. I mean, how cool would that be? But they're older. It's not like
That's the problem.
they
problem.
are older. You're right.
So I'm
Yeah.
hoping. So I actually came up with a nickname for my Boston Scott man who came out of nowhere
Okay.
last year during when we were fighting for the playoffs, and I came up with the nickname Sparky Scott because he's so sparky and he can just run anywhere and he just comes out of nowhere. So I think we're gonna use him for as he's gonna be a good portion of our backfield for sure.
I think that you're right, Sarah, and I think that if anybody's listening to this right now, she just gave you a really good tip for someone to stash in really
There
late
you go.
rounds. We saw Boston Scott really emerge at the end of last season, and I think that you could be absolutely right on there, and I think that could be a good value late in a
Yeah.
draft.
Totally. And so do you get to what is your day-to-day job for fantasy?
Well, right now it's a little boring because I'm coming up with like best newbie sequels ever. And like I'm so glad that we had the NFL draft and NFL news because that was super fun. And I feel like we got to all dig a little deeper into the rookies. But normally what I would do is get up and look at box scores and try to decide whose value is going up, whose value is going down, advise people on how to make trades, how to draft, and just see if we can find trends and also try to keep it entertaining. So I think that's the one thing is you don't want this not to be fun anymore. I think some people start to take it too seriously. And you want to be good, you want to win, but you also really want to have fun. But with the, advent of sports gambling, sometimes people just get like queuing just into the numbers and they don't remember to invest some emotion in the players and the teams. And
Right.
so I try to keep a balance between both to try to keep the joy about the game there, but also help people, win.
Totally. And I actually have a question for you. In regards to just moving to LA, do you find I moved to LA 3.5 years ago, and I'm finding I found it really hard to find people who liked football. And it's so interesting because the NFL Network is literally down the street from where I live in Culver City. So you would think that there would be a lot of, men who'd like football or people who like football. But have you found it's a hard community to find out there?
It definitely, compared to Texas, for sure.
Yes.
And I think even compared to New York.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I do. I think this is just a little more laid back surfer kind of world, a little more artsy.
Totally.
There are communities here. Like I know like Liz Loza from Yahoo Sports lives out here, and Sam Holt at Fantasy Focus. She lives out here and she's super cool. And so we'll have to invite you out for like a ladies lunch or something.
Oh my
and we can all
gosh.
do our ladies football,
Oh
which
my
would be
gosh.
fun. And then maybe we'll find cute boys too.
Oh my gosh,
You
I'm
never
so
know.
down.
Jen,
We can always find cute boys.
Jen.
I'll supervise, I promise.
Okay. Okay, I
Do
got
you-
your number.
Do you have any like bars or any are there any cowboy bars that you know of around that you go to, or do you just watch sports at home or?
Not really, usually at home, because a lot of times when I'm watching them, I'm also kind of taking notes.
Totally.
And I'm watching like 7 games at one time.
Oh my gosh.
I've got like the NFL Sunday ticket, and
You
I'm
have
like
the
going
setup.
around on the different games.
Yeah.
Yeah, I kind of have this set up. And like on Sunday mornings with Fantasy Alarm, when the season starts, Howard Bender and I do an hour before lineup set. We do an hour long of just letting people stream into our live stream and ask us start and sit questions.
No way.
That's
And-
cool. Yeah.
Yeah, people be like, do I start, Jalen Rager or Justin Jefferson this weekend? We'll be
Right.
like, oh, definitely Jalen Rager because they're facing the Redskins and they're
Right,
going to
yeah.
tear them up, so
It's a lot of work.
that's kind
Jen.
of what we do. It's
so
a lot
cool.
of work.
Yeah, it
It is,
yeah,
it's a lot of
listen,
work.
I love to play fantasy, but what you guys do, oh my gosh, there's so much information out there now. I don't know that I could do what you do, and it's so again for you, it's not work. It's just so much fun, and that's the key.
Yeah.
You're so into it, and that's the beauty of all this. You do what you love, and it ain't work, and it's people listen because they're so into it, and that's the cool thing. You're making in a fun way, in a unique way. You're making a difference. I mean, it's entertainment, right? and it's
Yeah.
fun. It's awesome.
And it's so cool that you're
And
a
I
woman.
think that's the thing that's
so cool
yeah,
that you're a woman.
important to me. Oh, thank you. I mean, like, there should be more women doing it if it makes them happy.
Definitely.
You know?
Yeah, Jen.
I mean, there's no reason we can't like sports too.
No, and I have been on, and I will tell you this. As again, I think it's mainly because of how I grew up, respecting everybody. Back in the day, you know, and I have talked to women in baseball and sports reporters about the back in the day when I was watching football and baseball, there were no women. So I listen to women now. Initially, when I first heard a woman on the sideline, okay, my 60s and 70s brain said, "What the hell is she doing there?" Right? Because that's what we were used to. It was different, and unfortunately, the bias was, well, what does she know?
I know.
And that was the
Right.
tradition, right? And I admit it. Traditional male in the 60s and 70s didn't grow up with any women in sports. They participated in the gymnastics or in the Olympics, and there really wasn't. When I went to high school, there wasn't any girls softball, right? So it was. It's totally. It's totally different now. Jessica Mendoza on baseball, Michelle Tafoya, and so many women, and the Women in Baseball podcast, and Justine Siegel with women, with her all women baseball for all, girls in baseball, women in baseball. It's awesome. It's awesome. And
It is.
And here's the problem. And again, the issue is what you guys, women, have gone through to get to this point. I've read stories. I listen to I read some Twitter accounts. Jennifer Ciroli, or Jessica Ciroli. Listen, she admits she's been a victim, and she said, "I'm not going to be a victim anymore. I'm telling it like it is, and if you don't like it, the hell with you." But why should I? Unfortunately, we as women still have to, quote, prove ourselves to the men in the business, and it's going to be that way until, you know, whatever breakthrough happens. So to tell you, I've had so many women authors come on, which is great. Isla Borders is coming on at some point. First women pitcher in professional baseball. I'm going to get her book. And all these the All American Girls Professional Baseball League. You know, I love all that stuff. So, and unfortunately, and I'm going to take you back a little bit, the history of this was never brought up. And I think if it was, specifically the women in the All American Girls Professional Baseball League, more men probably would have accepted the fact that, okay, yeah, women can be in sports, but it wasn't brought out. Just like Negro Leagues, I really got into the Negro Leagues baseball this year when I found out it was a centennial celebration. Well, holy crap, I am on board. It's so cool to see what these guys. Some of these guys were as better than what they were back in the day. You know, so I am learning even at my age. I'm learning so much, and for me, it's just so cool. And the fact that there are women coming up, do it. Do what you need to do, and you know. Unfortunately, sometimes you have to toe the line, but you know the difference. And I think every woman knows the difference, what that line is, and just keep doing what you're doing. Is what I'm saying.
Yeah. Thank you for the support and encouragement. I will say, like, I did, like, you know, last week I had a comment on something like, you know, what's boring is taking your news advice from a blonde girl, blah, blah, blah.
Oh.
You know, like, you get those every once in a while, but you know what I do? I'm like, well, the fact that you feel the need to comment says I got your attention somehow. So I'm just going to consider that a win and let it roll off my back.
Exactly.
But for the
Go for it.
I was going to say, for the most part, I have to say, especially like my friends at Fantasy Alarm, I call them my friends, even though they're my bosses and my coworkers, they have been so incredibly supportive and excited to have like a female way of thinking about things, to help them think about things from a different angle. Because literally there are silly things that, like, one time I was talking to my co-host on SiriusXM, Justin Fensterman, and
I was talking about if they push the season back in quarantine, and I said, well, this makes Trout not number one for me. And he said, why? And I said, because his wife's pregnant. You think he's going to like leave them for 6 months? I was like, there's going to be some kind of limited something. I don't think you'll get a full season out of Trout. And his mind was like blown.
Right.
And
Not
like,
thinking
well, that's
that
just a
way.
logical thing. If you're a woman, you think about that right away.
Yes.
Like,
Yes.
not a big deal.
Yes, I.
You know,
totally-
that's beautiful. Like, you should be able to see men's side, women's side, and there's something that we all offer.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And we've lost so much in the past, and now because the women weren't allowed or weren't accepted, let's put it that way.
Yeah.
You know, absolutely. We have to get more accepting gentlemen out there.
Yeah, definitely. And you know, it also is because, you know, gentlemen just get a little intimidated by how much women know. You know what I mean? We just are just gonna.
There's a little truth to that too.
You know, Jen, it's just yeah.
Yeah, it is true. Men don't like it and you do have to be careful sometimes. I have gotten into conversations with people before, like they're like, oh, I'll talk, you know, I won't tell them what I do, and they'll talk about sports, and I'll answer, and then they'll say something, instinctively I'll just say like, oh no, but you know, something, and then they'll just look at me like, I don't want to talk to you anymore.
Yeah.
No, and
Yes.
And all right, so let me ask you a question. How old are these guys? Because for me, again, I will look at you and turn, and my mouth would be agape and go, whoa, that's impressive. Is that the different generational thing?
Yeah, I think it is a generational
Definitely.
thing.
Okay.
Yeah, I do.
Definitely.
Because my dad would be impressed, you know,
There you go.
and yeah.
Cousins
Yeah,
would be
so I think
impressed.
it's a generational thing.
But then if you try to, you know, try to talk sports to a man that, you know, is at a bar that you think is watching sports and you out talk him, oh, that's not good.
No.
So, I'm not going to say anything. I was going to say something, but I'm not. It's about older men, but I'm not going to go there. Stop, Mitch. Shush. Don't say anything. Your daughter is right next to you. Okay, Sarah, go ahead. So, all right, Jen. So, football coming up.
Yeah.
But let's talk.
Yep.
NFL division of the Cowboys and the Eagles.
Yeah, we
and
are in the same
Redskins.
division. I was gonna tell.
That's right.
We're gonna have to watch a game together in LA. Cowboys versus
Yeah.
Eagles.
Absolutely. I mean, I think that those two teams are obviously the two favorites to win the division.
Oh, definitely.
It's a great rivalry. I absolutely love what the Cowboys did in the draft. I don't think we ever expected to get CeeDee Lamb, and basically that just set everything on its ear. But it turned out to be really great. And I've heard a lot of people be like, "Well, what good is he going to be?" You know, they already have Cooper, they already have Gallup. It's going to ruin both of them. And I get that to an extent if you're thinking about it from a fantasy perspective. Like if you were hoping that one of these rookies was going to get you the kind of points Josh Jacobs got people last year,
Right.
okay. But you got to remember we lost Randall Cobb, and CeeDee Lamb and Cooper could both play in and out of the flat. So Randall Cobb went to Houston, and he had like 80 targets last year, 800 yards, 5 touchdowns, I believe. So CeeDee Lamb could easily slot in for that. But he's even more talented, younger.
Yep.
I mean, this guy's like highlight reel crazy. Like, how does he turn these things into scores? It's
That's
just
crazy.
unbelievable.
That's
So
insane.
I love what we did. So I feel really confident about the offense in Dallas. You guys have a better defense, just flat out. Going out and getting Darius Slay. Defensively, you're going to be better. So I think I would give the edge to the Eagles defensively and the edge to the Cowboys offensively.
So it's going to be fun when Sarah and Jen get together with the Cowboys.
I do
and
agree with her
Eagles.
though. Yes, definitely.
Wow,
Definitely.
that'll be fun, Jen.
Yeah, it will be. I actually love I don't mind at all watching with people from other teams as long as they're like, I hate when people like are nasty and mean about it. Like for instance, another terrible thing about me, I guess. But I'm an Astros fan, but you know, again, I'm an Astros fan. I didn't know they were cheating. You know, you can't hold this against me. But when I would watch games before all of that with Yankees fans are just insufferable. I mean, I love them. Many of them are some of my best friends, but they're insufferable to watch sports with.
They really
They're
are.
playing your
They
team.
Yeah,
Some people would say that about Eagles fans, but
yes, that's true.
I'm a
That's true.
respectable
Some people
Eagles
do.
fan.
Yeah, Jen, if,
I believe you.
if we ever get together, I have to tell you some stories about. I actually worked security for the Eagles for three seasons. Oh my God.
Oh wow.
Oh man, it was just ridiculous. It was fun, football. As you know, I would sit there and we would get there for a 1:00 game. We'd get there at 8:00, and we'd have a meeting at 9, and we'd get to our stations at 11:00. The gates would open, and while you're watching this, what was so cool about it. I realized I would go home. I said to my wife, I said, it really is cool to watch it. It's like it's a production. It's a major production, because what you see is, first of all, the players come out, 2.5 hours before the game, and they're just walking through with their headphones warming up. As that's happening, all the TV people and all the media are gathering, and they're getting the field ready, and then all of a sudden it's game time, and let's go, So it's really, really cool to be able to have had that experience. But oh my God, people are crazy. Eagles fans are nuts. Very unique. So have you gone down the Dallas schedule, or do you do that? Do you go look and go, okay?
I did.
And what did you come up with?
I think we're going to win at least 11 games.
Oh.
I think the lines right now in Vegas have us at 9.5, but I think we're going to win 11.
Wow. Sarah, did you do that with the Eagles yet?
I looked at our schedule. I think that it's going to be good that we have. I think the Seahawks are home.
Yeah.
We're playing them here. We're playing the Saints at home. I think we have a lot of good home games that we can win at home that we wouldn't have been able to win away. I think, I don't know. I can't ever do the schedule.
I went over it, and I'm looking at 9-7. Because they got
For the Eagles?
Yeah. Yeah.
What do you think?
Did you look? Have you seen?
I did not look that closely at the Eagles, but I will tell you that I looked close enough to know that I think that people should consider taking the Eagles defense, certainly at least for the first week, in their fantasy drafts, because I think that you can get them really late and you're going to get a great game from them right off the bat, and you don't need to spend up necessarily if you want to stream your defense, and the Eagles would be the perfect ones to take for week one.
I'm so excited. I can't wait to get my fantasy up and going, and then I'm just going to text you all the time. I'm totally only kidding a little.
A little.
Only kidding a little.
A little, Jen.
A little. That's fair.
Are you working from home now?
Yep, working from home. Luckily, as you know how nice it is in California, so I just keep my patio door open the windows a little, get some fresh air in here. And it's just bizarre though, because it's staying light so late, and like trying to separate work and life, and like I live alone, and it's like, all right, like, okay, this is getting long here. And I guess they just said that we're going to be under some kind of stay-at-home orders through July now.
We heard that today.
Yeah, so luckily this is the kind of thing I can do from home, thank God, right?
Yes, exactly.
So there's really no difference in where I am. The only time it matters is when I'm recording for SiriusXM, because we, I usually go to the studio here, but they have at-home codecs we can use and dial in on a fast DSL or whatever, I don't know what the fancy terms are, lines. And we basically, it's kind of an expensive device, but it's a really good investment, because when things like this come up, it makes so much sense, and then you can broadcast from anywhere. So I'm set that way.
Perfect. And when is your SiriusXM show on?
It's on Friday night, between 12 a.m. and 2 a.m. That's my regular show.
Perfect.
12 to 2 a.m. on Friday nights Eastern, so it's only 9 to 11 on the West Coast.
Yes.
And then it's on demand through the SiriusXM app, like for the next week afterward. And SiriusXM is offering free streaming through their website and the app through the end of May. So you can listen to anything on SiriusXM for free, including the Fantasy Sports Channel.
That's awesome.
Yeah, so I'm totally recommending that to people. And then I also guest a lot on the Fantasy Alarm Show and some of the other shows I plug in. And I did the Tout Wars broadcast with Glenn Colton, Rick Wolf, Howard Bender.
Cool.
So it just depends, these different things. But my regular show is every Friday night, 12 to 2.
Awesome. Yes, I'm definitely going to have to tune in. I'd love to listen.
Yeah, and you should call in too once we get back in the studio. That would be
Okay, I
fun.
definitely will.
Yeah.
Definitely.
For
you
sure.
Can, then you can discuss where you're going to go after the show.
Yeah.
Exactly.
And Jen, listen.
Which won't be that late in California.
It's not
No,
going to
it
be.
won't. That's
Nope.
what-
And maybe
exactly.
the light will still be out.
And like I said, Jen,
Yeah.
May 28th, we're open to extra help. I mean, it is a Friday, so you might
Even
think,
though I'm a Cowboys fan?
Yes,
Jen,
even
yes.
though.
Jen, I'm looking for help here. Can you go with me here? Can you go with me on this? The more the merrier. Come on now. And we'll have a lunch at Starbucks afterwards, and we'll be good.
Sounds fun.
Sarah's telling me to stop. We were actually thinking, Sarah and I, she was thinking of wanting to do a podcast together. So
Yeah, I think that would be an interesting. We'd have to see.
I think it'd be awesome. I think that father-daughter podcast would be amazing. And if I brought it up to my dad, he would start researching how to do it tomorrow morning.
there
Yes.
you go. There you
Exactly.
go. I asked somebody. I said, "Are there any father-daughter podcasts around?" This was some guy who's in the business of podcasting. He goes, "Yeah, I know there's some father-sons, but I don't know of any father-daughters." It's like, "Oh, Sarah. Okay,
It would
Sarah.
be cool.
We're
That
getting
would
on
be
that.
cool.
It would
We
be-
talk about everything.
It would be really cool.
Really, really fun.
You should do it.
We're gonna
You
look at it.
should.
We're gonna look at it for sure this week while she's here. Jen, listen, this has been so much fun.
So much fun.
Thanks for having me.
Oh,
I really appreciate it. It was a lot of fun for me too.
Good. I'm glad to hear. That's a beautiful thing.
I totally look up to you. It's so cool what you're doing because you're in sports
you.
and I love sports and something hopefully one day I'll be able to be in too. So it's awesome to see where
Absolutely.
you've come from and where you are now, and it's awesome. So
Yeah, Jen.
inspiring.
Thank you.
Very nice to talk to you. Very nice to meet you. Glad we were able to find each other on Twitter, and just love the conversation. You're so much fun, and
Hopefully we can maybe meet someday in LA.
Yeah, that would be awesome. You guys stay in touch.
Totally
Okay.
will. Thank you so
we'll do,
much.
Jen. Thank you very much, and
You're welcome.
and stay safe.
You too.
Okay,
Bye,
take
guys.
care now.
Bye.
Bye bye. Whoa, talk about a fun conversation,
That
huh,
was fun.
Sarah?
Yes.
I mean,
love
she's
football.
so sweet, so
girls.
bubbly, just so much fun, easy to talk to. That was just great, and she knows her stuff. I mean, she started spouting a statistic, and I was like, oh my gosh, how does she know this off the top of her head?
It's so cool.
It really is. It really is. So that's Jen. Thank you for calling in, for listening. We appreciate it very much, and it's just fun to have somebody that.
It's cool when you can talk to someone who you totally can relate to.
Yes, and it's just easy to talk to, just like Joan was, and just like
Yeah.
Jen. I mean, and I believe Jake will be the same way.
It's Uncle Jerry, Bernie. You're gonna accept it for this minute?
Hello, who's this?
Let me just say, the sidekick is doing amazing.
All right, that's a great thing. But the fact of the matter is, we got 2 minutes. I got 1 minute because I got a guy coming on. Sidekick's good, isn't she?
I make the show. What do you think?
Yeah, she is such a natural at it. I think it's amazing. You should totally do this.
Somebody's
did you
clapping
hear
for you in
the-
the background.
Judy's clapping
Is
for
that,
me in the
is that
background.
my sister Judy
Yeah.
calling? Clapping?
She's clapping for you in the background.
She's clapping. Yeah, it's
All
like
right, that
it's
sounds
like
really
Howard Stern and Robin.
I'm
You guys
Howard
can get
Stern,
a little
right?
dirtier.
We can get
Yeah,
we
I
could
know
get a little
that-
dirtier, but
Get a little dirtier. I know you were using words like sexist, racist. That's all right. That's fine.
okay. All right.
But I think it works great. I think you guys should do something together, or Sarah, you should do something on your own in California.
All right, we're
But
gonna
you
look
sound
at that.
amazing.
Oh,
sound
good,
very
Jerry.
Thank
knowledgeable.
you, Bern.
Thanks, Boney. All right, Boney, I got Jake Gronsky coming on in a minute. I don't want to miss him.
But listen, stay
Yeah,
on.
guys, we're listening.
Okay,
Okay.
bye.
See ya.
That was fun.
That was fun, Boney. That was my my buddy Boyney.
Boyney. Boyney and Aunt Judy.
Boyney knows Boyney's in New York. He's a friend of Ron Greshner, former New York Ranger. He's
Bernie,
friends with my sister, Judy. What?
Bernie's not a former New York Ranger.
No, Ron Greshner
Oh,
is a
yes.
former New York
Not
Ranger.
Bernie.
I thought you were looking at Judy going, Judy's a former New York Ranger? Judy, are you a former New York Ranger? Do I not know something about you? Growing up? How crazy. I think this might be Jake right now. Let's see. Good evening, Jake Gronsky. How are you? This is Mitch.
Hey, Mitch, I'm good. How are you doing?
I'm doing just fine. Thank you for taking the time to call. Jake, where are you calling from?
Yeah, absolutely. I'm calling from Philadelphia, Pennsylvania.
Well, are we neighbors? Is that what we are? Are we neighbors? For crying out loud?
I think so.
Yeah, because I'm up in Bethel Township, just over the state line of 202 in Bethel Township.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. Gotcha. Okay.
Yeah.
That's a nice little suburb.
Yes. Yeah. So how's
Awesome.
everything? How you been? How's life in quarantine?
It's not bad. Well, I'm an introvert, so it's not too bad for me since I work and then I read and then I write. But the only thing that is definitely I need to be outside as well. So
Yes.
it does help. I write into my calendar of specific times throughout the day to get outside. So I guess it shows how grateful I am to have an outdoor place where I can walk and I can enjoy the outdoors. So that's pretty much the only difference for me.
Yeah, we need that. I mean, it's you might think walking 100 yards to get the mail is not walking, but listen.
It's a gift.
Right? And today the sun's out. It's windy.
Yeah.
And listen, the weekend here is going to be nice. Have you seen the forecast?
I usually go hiking every weekend, so
You'll be sweating this weekend.
yeah. I saw it's pretty. Yeah, it should be pretty nice.
Where do you go hiking?
So I usually try to do different parts of the Appalachian Trail.
Oh, really?
It's the perfect time to do it. A lot of places are closed, a lot of the state parks, but
Yeah.
a lot of the if you're willing to walk a bit further, which if you're hiking all day, it's not a big deal. You can find a parking spot somewhere and then get right up into the mountains. So it's a good time, especially trying to social distance in a way, and you're just in the woods with nothing but Mother Nature.
Yeah, yeah. Are you a nature guy by trade, basically?
Yeah. So I grew up in Danville, Pennsylvania, which is central PA. It's right on the foothills of the Appalachian Mountains.
Okay.
So pretty much everything growing up was always outdoors.
Nice.
And then I moved into Philadelphia. So kind of being in a concrete jungle, that was a culture shock to me a little bit, and so it's always good. For me, that's pretty much now my top hobby is finding different trails to go on. So it's almost like self-care for me.
Sure, absolutely. Whatever. Yeah, I mean, if that's a calming thing for you, and I know for me, it's interesting. We live down here in the Brandywine Valley area, and just to see water by the Brandywine River, is calming for me. My wife and I took a walk 2 Saturdays ago by the Brandywine River Museum, and we didn't know. I mean, I had heard that there was a trail there, and you could walk, and the river. You're basically walking by the river, and it was awesome.
It's incredible. I mean, it's good for the soul. I mean, we weren't meant as human beings to live on something that is, slabbed with concrete. I mean, the way we were meant to live is with the land, not on top of it. So, not to go on a rant about that, but that's why it is like self-care to me in a way, and sometimes I think everyone should spend some time, with the earth.
Yes. Absolutely. All right, let's get into you specifically, and it's so funny. I've met so many people on here, sports writers, reporters, and for some god awful reason, no offense, Jake, they're all Cardinal fans, or most of them are Cardinal fans. Now, the reason, you have to know the reason why. Okay, so I have relatives in Peoria, Illinois, that
Oh,
are
well, there, yeah.
St. Louis Cardinal fans, and they're so freaking annoying.
Oh, God. Listen, people in Peoria are the best, okay? My favorite minor league stop in my career was Peoria, Illinois.
Is that
I
right?
loved playing at Dozier Park. Oh, my God, I love playing at Dozier Park. Had a short porch out in left field.
Yeah.
And it was just, it was like a bandbox to play in. Like, it is an incredible atmosphere. And I loved everything about my stay there. So it's going to be very hard for you to talk any smack on Peoria, Illinois.
No, I
folks.
won't. No, because
Yeah.
that I can't do because I met my wife there. Her family's from there.
Oh, no way.
It's just the Cardinals. Yes. I met 40 years. Well, we married 40 years in November. So we've known each other for 41.
Well, congrats.
Yeah. Great Midwestern town. At some point, Jake, listen, you baseball guy, I'll do this real quick, and at some point I'll tell you the story. We were watching the Peoria Chiefs one day, and we had been planning to go. We were planning already to go to the Field of Dreams. My father-in-law, may he rest in peace, was sitting in front of me. A guy next to him says, "Hey Jim, how you doing? What are you guys up to?" He goes, "Well, we're going to go camping up to northern Illinois this week, and we're stopping at the Field of Dreams." He says, "Oh, really?" He says, "Yeah." He says, Kevin Costner's going to be there, and I'm behind him.
What?
And I said, I didn't say holy crap. I said something else. So now I'm dying to get out of there to find out what the hell's going on. Long story short, we ended up going there. Costner was there. It was the 10th anniversary of Netflix. They showed the movie on the field right there on a big screen. Ended up getting Costner's autograph. It was amazing. I mean, it was just.
That's really cool.
It's fun. But let's talk about you. All right, Cardinals. So how long were you in the Cardinals organization?
Yeah, so I was in the Cardinals organization 3 years, from 2014 to 2016. I was an undrafted free agent. I actually played indie ball before I signed with the Cardinals.
Okay.
And it's funny, I played in Joliet, Illinois.
Did you? Yeah.
For independent ball, and then that next year was sent to Peoria, Illinois for the Cardinals. So pretty much my entire professional career happened in either Illinois or Florida, because that's spring training. I was also the high A affiliate. That was also rookie ball affiliate. So it was just Florida back from Florida to Illinois, back and forth and throughout the Midwest. But yeah, and I'll tell you what, like, it is funny now, after I was never really a big Cardinal fan before being with the Cardinals. And I know it's definitely a different relationship now. It's almost like an ex-girlfriend, but the Cardinals organization is a first-class organization through and through.
They are.
Even all the way down to like the fans. Like, I didn't realize the fan base of the St. Louis Cardinals out in the Midwest is very similar to like the size and the energy of like a Yankee fan base here.
Yeah.
And so I didn't really realize the magnitude of how deep the fan base goes. And again, even in Peoria, the fans treated us just like legitimately mini Cardinals. I mean, it was first class all the way. So as much as it hurts to leave the game, how challenging it was and still is to transition out of baseball, I have nothing but great memories from the Cardinals fans and the organization.
Yeah. Listen, I think a lot of what people don't like about the Cardinals is the jealousy factor, because they know what they're doing, and they have for a very long time. But I just, my nephews. And
listen, if no one dislikes you, then that means you're probably not good enough to begin with.
Sure.
No one has any problems with the teams that are always or fighting for everyone's scraps. So it's always going to be the teams that if you're in the hunt, and they're in a tough position in general, but if you're always in the hunt and you always have a big fan base, just like a city. I mean, the bigger a city gets, the more people you have, you're going to have some bad eggs in there. So
exactly,
it comes with the territory, so to speak.
Right. So you were in the organization for 3 years. How long after you got out of baseball did you turn author?
So I was always a writer, and that's what's great about this whole story. It really seemed like it almost came full circle while playing baseball. So in college, and there's a big difference. Let me just be clear. There's a big difference between being a writer and being an author, right?
Okay.
Like there's a big difference between being an amateur writer, as I was, and trying to make it as a professional writer, right? They're two different worlds.
Mm-hmm.
And when I was in college, I had a great professor, and I was always in all the writing courses. I was part of my major. I was a communication major, so part of it was writing. And he really just took a liking to my work. And he just said, hey, just take my classes for the next 4 years. So I was like, yeah, sure, I'm a baseball player. That's fine. I like writing. That's no problem. And it was one of those things I never even realized what was happening. He actually introduced me to more literary agents than I think my coach ever introduced me to baseball agents. Mm-hmm. And the whole time, I didn't know what was happening because I was a baseball player. I was like, my goal is to play professional baseball.
Right.
That's the only thing I have in my mind. So this writing thing was a distraction that I needed.
Okay.
Every baseball player needs something to take their mind off the game, or at least make sense of it. And
right.
To me,
it was
written word.
Yeah, I'm sorry. Like to reset a little bit,
Exactly. Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
And because we really don't have many hobbies, so to speak. I mean, baseball is your hobby. You want to make it a profession, but you need something that you can go off the field to and you can gravitate towards.
Mm-hmm.
And a lot of people choose the wrong things, and we could leave it at that. But for me, it was writing. And I remember after 4 years at school, I met with a professor for the final time, and all he said was, just keep writing. He said, I don't know where this is going to lead you. I don't know what's going to happen, but just don't stop writing. And then I did that all through professional baseball. That's, I would write for, myself.
Okay.
Every once in a while I would put up an article with a local website or whatever it might be.
Mm-hmm.
And then finally in my journeys with the Cardinals, that's where I met Josiah Vieira.
Yeah,
and that was the topic of my first book, and it was wild. The way we met, the way it all happened, how organic it happened, and honestly, how impactful that family has been in my life. And not even talking about the book, just in my life as a growing adult, trying to figure out this thing called growing up. Of how impactful they've been, and then. Then the story started unfolding. Then a producer, now a good friend of ours from ESPN, found out about the book and helped us. We found a literary agent. They sold it to a publishing company, and the book was able to come to life. So, it really brought going from a professional baseball player, the transition into author happened almost simultaneously. And I'm still not sure if that's a good thing or a bad thing, but it really helped me, and especially once I was cut from the Cardinals, that experience becoming pouring myself into someone else and someone else's story and not my own.
Right.
I really think that saved me.
Yeah, I'm sure it gave you a whole different perspective on life.
Yeah. Oh my gosh, absolutely.
I mean, I tweeted out to you. I was, I read something about it and I was like in tears. It's a fascinating story. So could you go over the point at which you felt you met him, and then how it all came full circle?
Yeah,
to writing the book?
Yeah. So we met at State College, Pennsylvania, and that's the short season affiliate of the Cardinals. And I was actually hurt at the time. It was I had a broken hand, and I'm from that area. So they sent me to State College in order to rehab and just meet the doctor. And it was crazy because then Josiah walked in, we met. I met the grandfather, Dave, and we struck up a conversation. He's from about 40 minutes from where my hometown was.
Okay.
And that off season, and along with this, Josiah would have his doctor's appointments at Geisinger Medical Center, which is in my hometown.
Oh,
so,
okay.
so that off season, I went to all of Josiah's doctor's appointments, and Dave and I would sit and talk. And every Thursday, Dave and I would get coffee. And Dave is his grandfather and perennial guardian, and has this hard fought wisdom of this life that, you know, I don't know how he survived. I don't know how it happened. And he would talk to me about life.
Right.
And it was like church to me. And during this time, you know, I was still rehabbing. It was the off season. And then we go to spring training and I get released. And then, you know, I come back home and we continue to meet on Thursdays.
Wow.
And we continue to talk. We continue to meet. And then finally, once he got to the end of his story, he said something that I'll never forget. I still get chills thinking of it. But he said he never wanted Josiah to be forgotten. And, you know, I was like, Dave, that will never happen. I mean, of how much Josiah, he was a volunteer coach for us. He was they retired his number.
Right.
And he was a staple in the State College Spikes. I said, of all the people that he's touched, like, there's no way we would ever forget Josiah. But then he said, but history is not told anymore. It has to be written or it'll be forgotten.
Okay.
And, you know, he does have a point.
Yeah.
So, you know, right there, we actually said, he said, Dave, I want to help you in any way I can with this. And we said from that day on that we were going to write the story with a goal of writing, just getting it on paper, printing out 2 copies at Staples, and every 10 years being able to sit back on this corner booth and read it. And that's when we started working on it. And it was, you know, writing the story itself was trial by fire because, again, you know, I wrote it when I was 24. It was published when I was 26. And, you know, making the jump from an amateur writer to then a published author is, you know, I went through some lumps. I mean, we rewrote it 4 times because it was, you know, it just needed to be. And quite honestly, there's even still today, you know, there's I guess, cringeworthy stuff that I would rewrite.
Right.
But it made me grow quick as a writer because Josiah's story is worth it. Dave's story is worth it. And, you know, it forced me to say, hey, if it takes me 10 rewrites to get this thing right, I'm going to do it because of how impactful the story was to me. If I can just get half of what the story meant to me, then it was worth it. So it made me grow quick as a writer. You know, it was trial by fire. And you know, I really kind of learned in public because, you know, you can't take it back once it's published. So,
right.
But I'm happy of how it came out because, you know, the story is incredible. Just how Dave poured into that. The only thing that we did right, I think, was we got the story right. And that's what matters. You know, you can deal with cringeworthy sentences, you can deal with wordsmithing issues, but if the story's right, then the rest of the book flows. So it was an honor to do it. It really was. And, you know, Josiah ended up passing away on Christmas Eve in 2018. And, you know, and that was, you know, it's still challenging today because of how much impact he's made. But I'm glad we were able to get the book out before then. So he was able to experience all that with us.
Yeah, and the book is called A Short Season, correct?
Yeah.
Yeah. And I noticed in reading about it, you know, he was able to do a lot of cool stuff, right? He was able to, he made a pitching change? Is that what he was able to do?
Oh, yeah.
That was really cool.
Yeah,
explain about that.
Josiah, yeah, so Josiah was a bench coach for the State College Spikes for, I think, 4 or 5 seasons. And then he has Hutchinson-Gilford progeria syndrome, which is rapid aging of the body. So it means for every 1 year of life, his body ages 10. And so it's a terrible disease because he gets weaker as the years go on.
Right.
And the great thing though about it was, you know, Josiah was able to experience a type of life that most people will never be able to in 100 years because, and it wasn't about like, you know, going to St. Louis or going to Florida or doing all these trips, but, you know, he was someone that he even knew his time was limited. So, you want to talk about a kid that enjoyed every day of his life.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, he was going to the park at noon for a 7 p.m. game because he just wanted to be on the field. So yeah, he was able to, there was an all-star game and they allowed him to do a pitching change and he was on the bench for all the games at State College. So
I read that excerpt.
It was incredible.
That's crazy. It's awesome. It's so cool.
Yeah.
Yeah. And you made, listen.
No, and
go ahead. Yeah.
Yeah. And then, no, it was great. They retired his number last year, which was really nice. I was able to be there for that, with Dave. So, that's the first number retired for the State College Spikes. And I think it's pretty fitting that's Josiah's.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, you found him to be obviously very engaging, courageous, but like you said, he wanted to live every day, right, as best he could.
I mean, yeah, I think what attracted him with baseball is that he just wanted to be treated like a normal kid. You know,
that's true. Yes.
The challenging is everyone wants to baby him and everyone wants to feel sorry for him, but he just wanted to be one of the guys.
Right.
So, it was great. We have still a video of us in spring training with some of the guys, and of us teasing him a little bit if he missed a ground ball that we threw him, or joke like he just wanted to be part of the camaraderie of the team. Mm-hmm. And so we made sure, we always said to anyone new coming in, like, hey, listen, when you meet Josiah, he's just one of the guys. That's who he is, and that's how we treat him. So, whatever happens, whatever you want to say, you say it, because Josiah will give it right back to you too.
Right,
so
which is great.
It was,
and that was the fun part, I'm sure, for you guys,
great.
Right?
Oh yeah, it was awesome. It was great.
Yeah. My daughter is with me, Sarah. She's here from California.
Hey, Sarah.
Co-hosting with me.
Coasting. I like coasting
with
better.
me. We're coasting too. She has a question for you.
The book is amazing and inspiring, and I just wanted to know if it's something that you're going to continue to do. Like if you found, your calling to maybe do something, continually write books and help kids, that are in need. And
yeah, no, the great thing, and I will say I give all the credit to Dave Boner for really trusting me with the story, but I've been fortunate enough to after this book to really be able to make this more of a steady career. It's something that I love doing. I love helping particularly athletes tell their story, because I don't think a lot of writers want to do these types of stories, and also I don't think a lot of athletes relate to anyone other than athletes in a way. So I've been fortunate enough to be able to work on another book after this, a few other ones in between. And I think it's really just because being an athlete turning into a writer, I'm not out to try to get someone's quote. I'm not trying to get the gossip from the clubhouse. What we're really trying to do is peel back the layer that people never see from an athlete. Because think about it. I mean, especially, you as a journalist and a podcaster, when you ask someone questions, athletes are used to saying the cliches, it's a marathon, not a sprint,
Totally.
we played as a team. They're great at dodging questions.
Mm-hmm.
The great writers, the great co-authors are the ones that can relate to that and then be able to pull out what's beneath.
Yes.
And tell the story. Exactly.
Exactly. So so I think that all comes down to trust. I mean, they're not.
Mm-hmm.
No athlete is just going to open up and tell gossip and do all of that, because that's not the book that represents them. So yeah, I mean, fortunate enough from that. Now I'm working with this is public information, so I can say it now, but David Eckstein.
Oh, okay.
David Eckstein, the 2006 World Series MVP.
Mm-hmm.
Me and him are collaborating on a story. So I'm excited for that. Whenever that's ready to come out, I think that's going to make a pretty big impact on the book world and on players in general. So
totally, that sounds.
So
amazing.
yeah, I'm very fortunate.
So he has, obviously, you and he found each other, and I'm not going to ask you to tell me about it, but I'm guessing it's again, like you just said, it's some kind of a unique story to tell that you think people want to hear.
I mean, David Eckstein is the greatest. He's the greatest underdog of all of baseball. I mean, he's 5 5'8", standing in cleats. He was a true walk-on at Florida.
Okay.
And then going into drafted by the Red Sox in the late rounds of just being a fill-in player to then being cut from the 40-man. I mean, obviously it's an incredible story of how someone became a two-time World Series champion, World Series MVP. But David, we met through the Cardinals, and we met through a mutual friend.
Okay.
But we met as players, and I'll tell you this, he was one of my favorite players growing up as a baseball player.
Wow.
And once we were able to meet, once I was able to get to know him, and once he was able to get to know me, I like David Eckstein more as a person now than I ever did as a player. And I've never seen someone of how invested he is into his community, in his baseball community, but just the people around him. He makes their lives better, and he does it silently. You never hear a peep from him because he's doing great things for people, but he's also just a great human being. So, it was an honor to work on that project, and I'm excited for it. It's his life memoir.
Okay.
And, it was just an honor to collaborate on that with him.
And do you have a potential release date? Because what I would love to do, Jake, is to, come back on and promote it when it comes out,
Listen, I wish that's up to David and his publisher.
Okay.
Our job is to write the best book possible. But no, hey, I will definitely, obviously when that goes out, I will let you know for sure.
Listen, I've been talking to so many authors on this show, and I truly admire people who can put stories down on paper and make it a book. That's something I couldn't do, like an artist. And even in the sports world, specifically baseball, that's my passion, that's my love. And again, not just the box score, but the stories behind these people are really what makes you become attached to a particular story, an issue, whatever it is. So I am, you've got to be, ecstatic that you have found this calling, because is it the type of business where once you get once you get one, you're kind of on a roll. You get the feel, even though you're continually learning about how to get it out there. And I guess maybe the more, and I had Joan Ryan on. She says, she was writing her books, and it motivated her when publishers said nobody wanted to read that stuff. Well, that just kind of reverse psychology motivated the crap out of her, and she did what she needed to do, right? So I love you. I love you authors. It's awesome to be able to talk to you guys about what your passion is.
Yeah, I mean, I'll tell you this. I do love the written story, because the only story that matters is the story beyond the story. So, this is for all genres. I mean, I write, in nonfiction, particularly memoir, and creative nonfiction, and then switching over soon in the fiction realm. But the only thing that matters in the stories is not really what happens, but what really matters in the story is what that actually means.
Okay.
And if you're able to do that, if you're able to turn that story, it's like anything, like an art form, like a painting. It's not about what you see; it's what you make them feel when they see it.
Gotcha.
And that is the key with writing. It's if you're trying to show someone what happened when you just wrote a Wikipedia page, it's about everything other than what happened, and that's why I think the Josiah story really taught me that well. And then even the Eckstein story in the sense where it's not about what David did, it's about why it matters that he did it.
Right.
And that's true with all stories. I will say, books right now have never been easier to publish, and they've never been harder to sell.
Yeah.
But it's if you can do a story correctly, if you can turn, the story into something more than just what happened, then I really think you'll find an audience that's willing to read it.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah, and listen, I'm gonna have to get a short season, and I know we can get it on all major book outlets, which is great.
Oh, awesome! Yeah.
Yeah.
I've been, I'm an emotional guy, so I'll probably, like I said, shed some tears, which is great. It's a good cry for anybody's good, right? Right, Jake? So we'll definitely look into doing that, and I wish you the best of luck with the future. And listen, I'll keep watching out for you. Maybe we'll meet at some point at the ballpark. Who knows if it's not this year, but maybe next year.
Oh, that'd be great. Yeah.
And we'll talk about it, and we'll get you on again. Love to talk to you more.
That'd be great. Yeah, absolutely.
Thank you so much.
All right, Jake. Listen, thanks for coming on. Thanks for taking the time. Again,
absolutely,
really appreciate
that was
it.
fun. Anytime.
And stay well. And at some point, we will get together. I know we will.
Awesome. Sounds good. We'll talk soon then.
All right, Jake. Take care.
Thanks,
now.
Jake.
All right. See you too.
Bye.
Yeah, as I've talked to these authors, again, it's all about the journey, Sarah, and the stories, and like Jake was saying, there's meaning in every story, and if you can elicit those feelings and have people who read it understand that story, then those writers have done their jobs, which is really pretty cool.
Definitely, and it definitely just ignites an emotional feeling that
Yeah.
you like.
Yes, absolutely.
You want to read more.
Yes, and that's why I can't wait to read all of the stories that all the books I've got sitting on my bookshelf, and I gotta get a couple more now, and I gotta stop getting these authors on because I gotta here's the good thing, I'm not spending money on gas, so I can spend it on books.
Yeah, you
Right?
got all the time now in quarantine.
Yeah,
Quarantine 2020.
exactly. All right, so folks, I hope you've enjoyed our guests. I want to thank them in order. Joan Ryan, and you can find Joan on Twitter at JoanRyan, award-winning author. Her new book, Intangibles, Unlocking the Science and Soul of Team Chemistry. Jen Piacenti is what it was, right?
Mm-hmm.
Piacenti, I got that CH there. Jen, thank you for coming on. She was a lot of fun with football fantasy. She knows baseball too, so we appreciated her coming on. You can find Jen on Twitter at JenPiacenti. And then we just finished up with Jake, Jake_Gronsky, Gronsky, former player in the Cardinal system turned author. He had a book, short season, voted 2018 Book of the Year by the Christian Independent Publishers Association. That's it for tonight. Next week, I'm going to give it a plug right now. We have 2 guests coming on. Actually, 3. Ellen Adair will be on with her husband, Eric Gildy. She has a new podcast. It's called Take Me Into the Ball Game. And her and Eric review baseball movies on a scale of 20 to 80, which is the baseball scouting scale. Learn a lot from Ellen Adair. I didn't even know what that scale was, so I listened to her podcast about A League of Their Own, when we're going to talk about A League of Their Own next week with Ellen and her husband Eric. And Ethan Bryan. Ethan Bryan has a great story. He has a book out that he wrote based on having a catch every day of the year, a baseball catch every day of the year, even in the winter. So we're going to talk to Ethan a little bit about that next week also. So pay attention to, please come back next week. We'll put some information out on Twitter. And we are so glad that you were able to be with us tonight. Really appreciated it. The conversation was awesome. And look forward to having you guys listen to me. Sarah will not be with me next week. She's going back to California. So maybe maybe this podcast thing will happen, huh, Sarah?
Yeah. Maybe we'll do a podcast and all my fans can listen
All
to
your
me
fans can listen
on my podcast.
And on your what podcast?
On the podcast with you.
On her podcast? Oh, she's taking advantage. All right, folks. Appreciate you listening. Have a good evening. Continue to social distance. And
Stay safe.
Be safe out there. And we will talk to you next week. Take care now.
And good evening, everybody. Welcome to another edition of the Captain Lou Extravaganza Live here on the 12-Ounce Sports Network. Yours truly, Captain Lou, in the captain's chair, if you will. Hope you enjoy the voyage here for the next 2 hours. Should be a great show here tonight. We are jam-packed. We've got an all-star lineup of guests coming up here tonight. Coming up at 8:30, a first-time guest on the show, Jesse Goldberg Strassler. He is the play-by-play voice of the Lansing Lugnuts, the single-A affiliate of the Toronto Blue Jays. So we'll get his insight on what's going on in the world of Major League Baseball and the minor league system during this pandemic and this COVID virus, if you will. Jesse's going to join us at 8:30. At 9 o'clock, a return guest, my old tag team partner, Matt Gamlin from back in the Captain Lou and Matt days, is going to join us. We're going to review the Money in the Bank pay-per-view that took place this past Sunday. Not one of WWE's finer pay-per-views, in my opinion. Pretty much went to chalk except for maybe the actual ladder matches, but we'll talk to Matt about that to begin the second hour of the show. And then at 9:30 Eastern Time, we're going to be joined by Sean Bednard. He is the play-by-play voice of the Fayetteville Marksmen. He is of the Southern Professional Hockey League. Sean, an old friend of the show, a buddy of mine from way back, fellow Central Michigan alum. He's going to join us and talk a little minor league hockey and what's going on in the hockey world. We'll get his opinion if he really thinks that the season is going to start on time. We got, again, as I mentioned, lots to talk about. A couple of breaking things before we get into the meat and potatoes of the show. Again, thanks, everybody, for joining us. Hope you're all staying safe and keeping the social distancing going on. And I know it's a very difficult time for everybody, but we hope that you're all staying safe. We want you to be with us for years to come here on the Captain Lou Extravaganza. Just read about 5 minutes before the show started that in Arizona, it looks like they're going to allow Major League Baseball to start back up as early as next Monday, or 4 days from today. So that'd be Sunday, or see, 16th, that'd be Saturday. Okay. So I know there isn't any Major League Baseball going on, but it sounds like they can start training in Arizona. So that's great news for Major League Baseball fans. Now it's just going to come down to if the two sides can start getting to an agreement. We'll talk a little bit about that here in a moment. The other thing that I read coming up is actually there's been a lot of breaking stuff within the last couple of hours. In the MLS, they said they're going to start back up June 1st with a tournament, it sounds like, in Orlando. So things are starting. They're trying. They're trying to get back in session here. It's going to be a slow roll, everybody. We all know that, but these are baby steps, and it's encouraging. Now, hopefully, we can all get together and possibly get through this. The door is opening just a little bit, and I hope that it really that's a catalyst for things to come. We can only hope. And but on the other side of the coin, I read earlier this afternoon that in California, the 23 state universities, Fresno State, Cal State, all those, Sacramento State, they announced that they're not going to have any face-to-face classes in the first semester out there. So what kind of an impact is that going to have on college football for those schools, for example? And Mark Emmert's come out in the NCAA and said if there's no kids in school, there will be no games played. So unfortunately for those schools, they're not Power 5 conferences. So, they don't have the leverage that the Power 5 have, the SEC, Pac-12, Big Ten, SEC, ACC. They're pretty much, they could tell the NCAA tomorrow, you know what, we're done with you guys. They can do their own thing. And something tells me they still might. But one wonders now what's going to happen with UCLA and USC. Now, I know that Alabama is supposed to play USC Labor Day weekend, September 5th, as a matter of fact. And the rumor has it that they've already rescheduled that with Texas Christian, so TCU. So what does that do with USC? The talk already with the Pac-12 is they're only going to play conference games. They're going to cut down their schedule. So many things going on right now. And that's the problem with college football is there's no leader. You've got all these teams now that are going to start making their own deals. And that's really going to raise some red flags, I think. You got the haves and the have-nots. But, again, when you've got nobody running college football as far as a commissioner or whatnot, these Power 5 conferences, they're going to do what they want. Now, I read where the SEC commissioner was talking to Paul Feinbaum today, I believe, and he said that safety is going to be their first concern still. Well, I can buy that to a certain extent, but I think ultimately what's going to come down to for these big schools is, how much of a monetary hit are they going to take? And they're going to do everything in their power to play with or without students on campus. You look at their standing, and I read articles today about it. It's insane. They're standing to lose billions of dollars. And these big-time colleges, this is their cash cow to fund the smaller schools. Or, I'm sorry, the smaller sports. Your track, your wrestling, your lacrosse, that don't have the revenue generated. These sports football keeps those sports afloat. And, I was reading in the same article, what about I think it was in USA Today, what about the smaller schools that are counting on these bigger schools, like a Murray State, I believe. They said their total ticket gate for the whole season was like $100,000 and some thousand. Yeah, and they're going to get $900,000 by playing a Louisville or something like that. Is Louisville going to want to play them? Are they going to be able to? So that's just the tip of the iceberg. These smaller schools losing all this kind of money by this. I mean, what's going to happen? Because they don't have the television revenue. So it really is. It's a crazy scene right now, and there's no answers. I was just also tonight. It was announced by the Mid-American Conference that they're eliminating I want to say 8 postseason tournaments. Baseball, softball, lacrosse, wrestling, I think it was one of them. Tennis, both men's and women's. There was a couple other ones. 8 conference tournaments are gone, at least for this year. And I think it was possibly up to 4 years before they have those. Man, that's a crusher for baseball and softball, for the MAC. They've got schools that are very good, and it really, that's too bad. And the MAC is going to one division. They're cutting out with the 2 divisions, and they're cutting down their conference tournaments. The first round sites, the first round games, they're not going to have those home site games anymore. So what it's going to be is a neutral site tournament, and only the top 8 teams out of the MAC are going to make the playoffs next year, the tournaments. That's in basketball. I mean, the COVID's really taken a bite out of everybody. It really is. And, you look at this and you think, wow, where do we go from here with that? What else is next? And there are just so many. There is no normal right now in professional sports, college sports, you name it. Our society is in general. I mean, you hear stories about just when you think the curve is flattening, then things come in the news, like, for example, one that touched close to me. I work for Coca-Cola as a delivery driver, and our warehouse in Lansing is right across the street from a big Meijer warehouse distribution center. Well, it just came out about half hour to an hour ago that 60 people in that distribution center tested positive for COVID. What that means, I don't know, but it's out there. So what do you do? How is that going to send Michigan into a tailspin? You've got Oregon not allowing games, at least with anybody in the stands, or games period, I believe, without anybody in the stands until at least October. What's Washington going to do? Michigan plays them the opening game. Are they going to cancel that? Everything's crazy right now, and it still is. And so you just got to buckle up, and it's going to be day by day. That's all we can say. Hey, we're going to try to get to some of our predictions for the upcoming season. If I don't get to them, I will finish them next week, I promise. We've just got such a stacked lineup here tonight. Things breaking, in the last hour or two that affect the sports world we want to talk about. Baseball had their proposal, Major League Baseball, the owners had their proposal sent to, they sent it to the players director, Tony Clark. And we could talk about that. We're going to go to break here shortly, but things are changing. But again, the schedule was released last week, and some of the teams, they got some big breaks. I look at Baltimore, and I never really thought about it until I looked at their schedule. They don't play a road game out of the Eastern time zone. And I know there was I want to say it was the Jets last year that had that. And I think another quirk, one of the teams, and I wish I would have wrote this down. I want to say it was Miami. Play 6 straight West Coast teams in a row. 3 or whatever it is on the home and on the road. We'll take a look into that, and we'll get you some of our predictions. I know I posted on my Facebook page, on the Captain Lou Extravaganza Facebook page, my predictions for the NFC North and the NFC East. And I've got a wide open prediction for both of those divisions, and some of you may not agree with it. But I look at these road games for the powers like Green Bay and Minnesota, and I think, man, I don't know. I just don't know. I don't see 10 wins for either one of those teams. And in the NFC East, I still don't see Dallas overtaking Philadelphia. Dallas, to me, didn't do really a whole lot to shore up their defense. Yeah, their offense is going to be great, but if they can't stop anybody, how are they going to win on the road? So there you go. Well, we're going to take a break. We'll be back in a couple of minutes. We'll talk a little bit more about the MLB situation, and we'll try to get into some of our NFL predictions. Don't forget, coming up, 8:30, Jesse Goldberg-Strassler, play-by-play voice of the Lansing Lugnuts, is going to join us, the Toronto Blue Jays single A affiliate. And then at 9 o'clock, Matt Gamlin's going to join us. We're going to talk WWE Money in the Bank results. We'll get his take on that pay-per-view. And at 9:30, we've got Sean Bednard, old buddy of the show, the play-by-play voice of the Fayetteville Marksmen. So we got a lot to talk about tonight. We're here till 10 o'clock Eastern time. We're glad you could join us live here on the 12-Ounce Sports Network.
Esports are here to stay. Go to jazzsports.ag, log into your account, and look for our new esports section on the top of your screen. Browse through all the different available matches and watch them live with our exclusive esports betting platform. Get instant access to game results, pending and graded bet reports, outright bet types, and upcoming match schedules, all at the easy reach of your fingertips. Jazz Sports puts you in the game.
Nothing makes us happier at Lexington Law than when our clients cancel our services. Listen to this client call and see what we mean.
Lexington Law Firm, this is Erin.
I would like to cancel my account.
I'm sorry to hear that.
No, don't be. Actually, you guys have done tremendous work for me, and I was working with you for several years now. And my goal was to get a mortgage written by the end of this year, and I just got that mortgage commitment.
That is wonderful.
My credit went from like 440 working with you guys to 700.
Nice.
And I got a very good 4.25% 30-year fixed rate mortgage. I have nothing at all bad to say. If you ever want me to write a testimonial, well, I will. As a matter of fact, I've recommended you to a lot of friends.
Lexington Law has served over 500,000 clients, taking expert action on their credit that has led to the removal of millions of questionable negative items from their credit reports. Call now and learn more about how Lexington Law may be able to help you in the removal of negative items from your credit report, such as collections, late payments, charge-offs, and many others. Call Lexington Law today.
DrinkAid, ready for distribution worldwide.
Hey everybody, welcome back to the Captain Lou Extravaganza live here on the 12-Ounce Sports Network. Again, we are brought to you by my bookie AG. Sorry about that, I had an absolute brain fart. Seat Giant, I know, great news for Seat Giant. It looks like games might be starting, hopefully sooner than later we can get fans back in the stands, but we just wanted to let you know, longtime sponsors of our show here on the 12-Ounce Sports Network. Again, coming up in about 12 minutes, we'll have Jesse Goldberg-Strassler, the play-by-play voice of the Toronto Blue Jays, single A affiliate, the Lansing Lugnuts. He'll stop by and we'll get to visit with him first time on the show for us. We're really excited to have him on. Speaking of baseball, the Major League owners, well, first the breaking news, which is great news for Major League Baseball, is that Arizona's governor has announced that they will allow Major League Baseball to start being played on the 16th of May. Well, we know that they're far away from that, but it's a step in the right direction as far as the country goes to try to get some sort of sports going in the Major League Baseball side of it. But it was announced yesterday that the owners approved a plan to present to the players where they could possibly get something in place to start playing ball, hopefully 4th of July weekend, which is something that we've kind of predicted all along here on the show that could happen. But I think the stumbling block is going to be, to me, I've said it yesterday, and to me there's two stumbling blocks. It looks like the owners are going to go to the players and looking for concessions still to I don't know, maybe set up some type of hard cap, a revenue sharing plan, and the players are not going to go for that. I know the initial plan, they want nothing to do with that. So it doesn't surprise me that they don't, and I'm holding out hope that both sides will come together. Now, I know the players had agreed already to prorated salaries. It's just it's the last thing that Major League Baseball needs right now is for this to be a prolonged negotiation with the players, because it looks like we're close to possibly getting a plan set up where it looks like approximately an 80-game season, 80 to 90 or whatever, 82-game season maybe, where they're going to play, for the most part, teams in their own divisions, and then a crossover into, for example, with the AFC Central, or AFC, the American League Central, with the Tigers, the Indians, the Kansas City Royals, the Minnesota Twins, Chicago White Sox. They would play the Cubs, the Brewers, the Cardinals, the Pirates, and the Reds, and so on and so forth with each of the other divisions. And I believe the plan also is for 14 playoff teams, 14 all told, a couple extra wild card teams, 7 playoff teams in each league. And the hope is to get them done without possibly going to neutral sites. But if they stick to this plan, it sounds like they could get the games in, by the beginning of October, and they might still be able to play them. Well, I'm keeping my fingers crossed, and we know that the relationship between the players and the owners back in the day, 20, 30 years ago, was very, very contentious. And I thought they've been making some good strides, both sides. It seems like their relationship has been a lot better in recent years. And I hope that this stays that way, and we get some harmony between the two sides. And there's some give and take on both sides. I get it. I know it's funny because you hear a few of the players, Mark Teixeira, for example, an ex-player, saying that he thinks that the players should go with the salary cap. The owners are contending they're losing millions upon millions of dollars in gate receipts, and which they're going to, but concessions and everything, and they think that the major league players, their union, should concede a little bit more. The players aren't going to do it. They're not willingly. They're not going to go down without a fight. So hopefully there is an impasse made between the two sides so they can get sports going and get it up real soon. So anyways, we got a few minutes left before our first guest. We talked about, we saw that the schedule release came out this past week, and this past Thursday, the NFL schedule came out, and we came up with our predictions. And for the NFC North, we'll start right there because that's one of them that I posted this past week or yesterday on my Facebook page, and also on my Twitter handle, which is @TheRealCaptainLou. And I know a lot of you are like, "Come on, Lou, 3-9-7 records." Green Bay, coming off a 13-3 season last year, they were one game away from going to the Super Bowl. I know they played in the NFC Championship game. But take a look at Green Bay's schedule, and I want to bring this to your attention. They start out, they're at the Vikings, and then they've got the Lions. They could go 1-1 and possibly 2-0 on those. I don't see Detroit beating Green Bay at Green Bay. It would take a minor miracle for that to happen. But they've got the next 3 out of 4 games. Actually, their next 4 out of 6 after that are road games. At New Orleans. Then they're home to the Falcons. That's a win. So we'll say 2-2. That Vikings game could go either way. We'll say 2-2 at worst. But then they're at Tampa Bay and at Houston. Green Bay doesn't do real well at Texas. Against the Texans, I should say, at Houston. So those games, that's 2 in a row. That's 2-4. Then they've got the Vikings in a rematch. That can go either way. I'll give them a win there. That's 3-4. Then they got to go to the 49ers. And that's a primetime game. 3-5. They'll beat the Jags 4-5. The Colts 4-6 on the road. Then they've got 2 winnable games, 6-6. Then they go to Detroit. Now I'm giving that a loss only because I just think Detroit can beat them at home. So that's 6-7. Even if they win that Lions game and then they go and beat the Panthers and the Titans at home, then they got the Bears at the end of the year. Now, depending on what the situation is with Chicago, if they're out of it, then yeah, I think Green Bay's got a shot at winning that. But you look at that schedule, and the most I see out of that is 10 wins. So let's look at Minnesota's schedule then coming up. Now, these are tough schedules. I don't care what anybody says. They open up with Green Bay at home. I'm going to give them a win. Then they're at the Colts. I'm going to give them a loss on that one. Then they've got to go. They've home to the Titans. I'll give them a win. That's 2-1. Then they've got 2 back-to-back road games, 3 out of 4, Texans, Seahawks, and Packers. You're looking at a potential of a 2-4. Okay, well, maybe they win one of those games, 3-3, so they're 4-3 against the Falcons, a home win against the Lions. The Bears will still be in it, 5-4. This is where they go 8-4 with 3 wins. Then, this is where it gets tough. 8-4 with 4 games to go for Minnesota. They've got the Cowboys, and that's counting 3 straight home wins, Cowboys, Panthers, and Jaguars. They stub their toe against the Cowboys. It could be even worse. But we'll say 8-4 going into that. Then they're at Tampa. Then they're home to Chicago. Then they're at New Orleans, and they're at Detroit. That could be 3 losses out of 4 to end the year right there. That's a tough gauntlet. I don't care what anybody says. You got a Saints team that has got a legitimate shot at going to the Super Bowl, in my opinion. So I see a 9-win team right there. 9-7, 10-6 at best. At best. So then you look at the Detroit Lions, and if I see if I can bring their schedule up here, I've got Detroit at 9-7, and I know I might be looking at it with my Honolulu blue glasses on, but let's take a look. Home game against the Bears, that's a win. Then they got 2 road games that are going to be difficult. Packers, I'm giving them a loss. Cardinals, either way, I'll say a loss there. So 2-2 because they got the Saints at home. But here's the next 2 games. Now, the Jaguars and Falcons don't scare the heck out of anybody. I think they could split those. If they do that, they go in 3-3. I know they've got a murderer's row in October. This is where they've got 1 home game between September 27th and November 1st. And that's October 4th. After that, they've got their bye week and then 2 road games. So October's tough. They get out of that 3-3. They got a home game against the Colts, which is winnable. The Vikings on the road, that's 4-4. Then they got the Redskins and the Panthers. The Panthers you don't know. So I'm going to say 5-5. Then they're home to the Texans on Thanksgiving. So we'll count that as a win. The Bears up in the air, 6-6. Green Bay at home, I think they can win that, 7-6. The Titans, you don't know. I'm looking at, then they finish with the Buccaneers and the Vikings. Now, this is where it gets dicey. And I know, again, I'm looking at it a little bit with my Honolulu blue and silver glasses on, and I've drank the Kool-Aid. But if they're in the hunt, and they're looking at 7-7 or 8-6 going into that Tampa Bay game on December 27th, they could pull that off. And they're all of a sudden, they're looking at 8-7. And they go that Vikings game at the end of the year with a shot at possibly a wild card with 7 teams out of each conference. Very legitimately could be a 9-7 or 10-6 team. All 3 of those teams are looking at 9-7, 10-6 at best. I just think Green Bay and Minnesota's schedule on the road is brutal. Brutal. Now, I know Chicago doesn't scare me right now. I think their quarterback situation's in flux. Their offense does not instill the fear of God in me whatsoever. Well, hey, we'll talk more about the NFL, but right now, let's go to our phone lines and let's welcome in for the first time here on the Captain Lou Extravaganza, the voice of the Lansing Lugnuts, and that's Jesse Goldberg-Strassler. Jesse, thanks for taking time out tonight. How are you?
It is a pleasure. Thank you for having me.
Oh, Jesse, the pleasure is ours as well. So I got to ask you, like I've asked some other guests of mine over the last couple of months, did you think 10 years ago that we would be sitting here with no baseball or no Stanley Cup playoffs to talk about at all on May the 12th?
Not in the slightest.
Oh, my Lord. What a tough break. What are you doing in your free time?
I can't say that I planned this way, but it's worked out. I have a brand new baby as of late December. So this is my silver lining is without sports that I get to be with my baby and my wife, and all of us get to be together.
Jesse, congratulations. That's awesome, man. What a great revelation. Congratulations.
Thank you very much.
So let's get right into it. I know these are some stressful times for everybody in sports and in life in general, but the baseball scene, It was announced today that the Major League, the owners were going to bring their proposal to the players to try to maybe wrap things up and try to get a somewhat of a season left and to start in July. Now, I read where the players weren't real receptive of it. What does, if I can get your opinion on it, what do you think of the chances of the owner's plan of being passed onto the players and for them to agree with it?
It seems to me that they're too open before they negotiate.
Wow.
We think about how confidential some coaches are, some teams are, how they seal everything. They don't want anybody to know the plays that they're putting in or the talent level of their players. Whatever it is, they want to keep things confidential. And this is being done in the exact opposite way. Hey, here's our plan. Here's everything we're going to present to them, those guys there, coming up this week. We'll see what they think of our plan to bring back baseball. And then the media rush over to the players. Hey, here's the plan. What do you think? You're going to the table with them. Well, here's what we think of their plan. The negotiations are where you get to yell at each other, where you get to say, we won't do this, we will do that. And you get to try to hash everything out and really make sure that whatever happens, if you are going to have baseball, the contingency plan, if somebody tests positive, how everything is going to be divided, that's what negotiating is all about. So I just think that all of this is so public, and I don't think that there's any need for it.
Oh, I agree 100%. Now, in my personal opinion, Jesse, and I don't want, I'm not going to paint you on one side or the other, but I just think it's a ploy by the owners to try to make the players look bad, try to put the fans on their side just in case there isn't an agreement on either side. I don't know. I know they're the last sport that doesn't have the quote unquote salary cap, but I don't like that. I'm with you. I don't like how the owners are doing this.
No, I think that fans are so ready to get behind sports. And we saw that with the NFL draft. We saw that with the WNBA draft. We're seeing that with anything that teams can do, anything that leagues can do, that just puts sports news out there. The Last Dance is footage from decades, and people are just so ready to embrace it. So all baseball has to do is just get out of its own way, and everyone will love it, the same way that people are diving wholeheartedly into the KBO, which a lot of folks didn't know about before, but they just want to have anything sports-related.
Well, I just saw tonight before I came on that Arizona, their governor has approved Major League Baseball play to start this coming weekend. Now, obviously, it's not going to. But I'll tell you what, it opens that crack of a light up at the end of the tunnel just even a little bit more, doesn't it?
Yeah, I think it does. I think that there are worries, and this is what some players have raised, notably Sean Doolittle. Let's say we do have baseball back. What are your plans in case of disaster? What are your plans in case a whole team tests positive or a coaching staff, an umpire, whatever it might be? Just let us know what your plan B, plan C is, and don't rush into this. But at the very least, yes, Arizona is leading the way in terms of there are amenable governors to baseball returning in the same way that we have seen Florida, among others, be amenable to professional wrestling.
Yeah, and I'm excited just for that little bit of news. And like you just said a few minutes ago, we're just grasping at anything we can get our hands on. It's so tough sometimes to stay positive in these times. And I hate to bring this subject up, Jesse, but at the minor league level, I know it's got to be tough. I know this could be a long year for you guys. What kind of contingency plans do they have? Or are you at liberty to even discuss about what may happen at the minor league levels?
Unfortunately, when it comes to contingency plans, we are so, I would say, the steering wheel belongs to Major League Baseball because they send their players to us. They send the coaching staffs. We take care of the stadium. We take care of a lot of different things. But it's their players, it's their coaches, and you can go right onward from there. Okay. Right now, Major League Baseball is concerned, as well they should be, with Major League Baseball. And they're so, I would say, focused on trying to figure out their own solution. They're not thinking about us. I can understand this. Mm-hmm. But because of that, minor league baseball is saying, Just let us know. Give us anything. What can we think about? There are a lot of minor league players and coaches and all of us teams, me with the Lansing Lugnuts. There are so many teams that are just saying, what are you thinking? What's your timeline? And Major League Baseball isn't thinking about anything minor leagues because they're just trying to solve their own situation first.
That's understandable. I get that 100%. We're joined by Jesse Goldberg-Strassler, the voice of the Lansing Lugnuts, the 2019 Minor League Play-by-Play Man of the Year. I hope I got that right. And that congratulations on that as well, Jesse, a well-deserved honor. They are the affiliate of the Toronto Blue Jays. Now, you get to call, obviously, a lot of the minor league games, and it had to have been kind of a thrill a couple of years ago to call like Vladdy Guerrero and Bo Bichette, two players that are going to have great major league careers. That's got to be an absolute thrill to look onto that and say, wow, I was elbow to elbow with those guys just a couple of years ago.
Yes, I love watching baseball as a whole. Like I enjoy watching sports, but it's kind of like this. Ever go to see a movie and you go, that was a really enjoyable movie. But you see a different movie and it's just so good. It reminds you of why you love movies in the first place, or a song that reminds you of why you love music. So watching Bo and Vladdy play baseball, and it just reminded me of how glorious it is to watch baseball played at that kind of level. What they did when they were in Lansing as teenagers, and now to see them up in the major leagues only a couple of years later, it's wonderful.
Oh, I can just imagine. You sound like the proud parent. That's great. Now, I got to ask you, if you can tell me maybe one or two guys that you saw in Lansing that you thought, well, you know, they could have a decent shot that may have surprised you, Jesse, that have made the show.
I did not think that Danny Jansen would turn out to be the Blue Jays catcher of the future. And now he is. Mm-hmm. He's the Blue Jays' #1 catcher, and they're putting a lot on his shoulders. I think he hit 206 in Lansing, and he struggled with injuries. So that he has blossomed the way that he has been very surprising.
Well, that's great. I know it's you see some of these kids and you think, wow, you know, because going to Lugnuts games, it's such a treat to watch them, and I just love watching at the single-A level because they're doing it for the love of the game, and they want to advance, and they've still got those dreams, and you can just see the hustle and everything else, and that's what makes it just that much more enjoyable, in my opinion, to watch.
It's an interesting thing, that whole idea of love of the game, because the players do have it, and I would argue that players at the major league level have it too. But what you learn is, if you're trying to do something as well as you possibly can, that you need to learn how to trust yourself. You need to prove to yourself that you can do it, which is why I think that in general, although you see the youthful enthusiasm, you see a lot of smiles on the faces of the older guys at professional sports, the guys who now know they got this and they don't have to worry about things, and they really can settle back into it. It's such a thing for these players when they first arrive, and you're saying to them, okay, great, you can field a grounder. Now do it 1,000 more times. Or pitchers, all right, you got a curveball. Now throw it this particular spot and keep doing that and keep doing that and keep doing that, because 5 out of 10 times a good curve, that's not good enough. And that, I think, is what the minor leagues is so good for, is just getting the repetition down. So that way, and let's look at basketball. The repetition of shooting that three-pointer in the corner 1,000 times, that way in a game, you don't even have to think. You can just release, and your mechanics and your body, all of that takes over, and you know it's going down. And that's when you can really smile, because you trust your body.
We're joined by Jesse Goldberg-Strassler, the play-by-play voice of the Lansing Lugnuts, the Toronto Blue Jays Class A affiliate, here on the Captain Lou Extravaganza. One of the other things I see you do, Jesse, is you host a weekly podcast for the Blue Jays called Around the Nest, and it sounds like it's very successful. And that's it sounds to me like that would be a lot of fun, because you get to keep more in contact with those kids that make it up to the dance, but yet you get to talk to everybody at all levels, it sounds like, of all the Blue Jays organization, and that's got to be fun in itself.
It is something that I recommend to every single other organization. I don't understand why people don't do it, because me growing up as a baseball fan, I wanted to know about the minor leaguers who were coming up. I wanted to know about the next guys who would be promoted. Who were they? And that way it wouldn't take me by surprise when a guy was suddenly called up and I wouldn't know who he was. And I also wanted to know who are the next big guys down the road. Or let's say I'm a Tigers fan and Riley Green gets drafted. I want to know how he's looking wherever he might be. What's the latest? What are the cool stories? So that's what I've created with Around the Nest is we go from AAA, AA, high A, single A, and right all the way through. I bring on the broadcaster and I simply say, hey, take me through your past week. Who are the guys who are impressing you? Who do you think is going to get promoted? Which are guys who they might have unlocked something or they haven't unlocked something yet, but you think that there's more there? Who are the guys that we should really keep an eye on? And then any cool stories that you can share. So it really is a pleasure to check in with every affiliate.
Well, one of the things, Jesse, too, that I see you do, changing subjects just a little bit, is you are very involved with the Michigan Baseball Hall of Fame and everything from writing the bylaws to managing the ceremony. Talk a little bit about that, because that's something that I want to tell you a little story about that in a minute. But tell us a little bit about what you do with that.
I'm the guy behind the scenes. When it was first created in 2015, it was brought to me, and I was told, hey, make a list of everybody who's ever contributed to baseball from the state of Michigan. Michiganders who've gone elsewhere, people from elsewhere who've come to Michigan, and at every single level. So I created a list, and then we sought nominees from people from around the state, whoever anyone could think of who would be deserving, could be on our ballot. And then I created the committee. I reached out to people, including the late Paul Carey, Ernie Harwell's broadcast partner, and onward, who could be on the 9-member voting committee. And from 2015, that inaugural class, I basically run the blind voting with our committee members every single year. Anyone who sends in any nominees, I add them to the ballot and we see if we can get them in. And beyond that, every year we name 2 new members to the Michigan Baseball Hall of Fame.
Well, one of your members was Dave Kylitz from Central Michigan. And
yes,
the story that I wanted to tell you, and I want to thank you for doing this because I got a chance to talk to him. I went down with a high school classmate of mine who was checking out their baseball program. And I went down because I wanted to check out their broadcasting program. And he was so warm to me, even though I wasn't a baseball player. And I remember we both ended up going there. And when I started covering the baseball team for the local campus radio station I worked at, the AM station that's no longer there, I was so nervous, and he would let me, interview him just about at least once a week. Well, I hadn't seen him for, probably 30 years. And I knew he was getting inducted. And I told my girlfriend, now my wife, I said, let's go to this game. I want to go and see if he remembers me. I want to go talk to him. And sure enough, he was out in the outfield in the 7th inning. And I went up to him and I introduced myself. And he's like, Lou, I remember you. You used to come and ask me for interviews every week. And he sat and talked to me for 15 minutes. And so, Jesse, I want to thank you for being a part of this because I got a chance to see him again, and he talked to me like I was an old friend of his, and I hadn't seen him in 30 years.
That warms my heart, and that shows you just what kind of person Coach Kylitz is.
Yeah, and again, I want to thank you for that. So, speaking of Central, my goodness, your plate is so full. You get to call their games. Hopefully, they have a season, which I got a feeling they're going to this year, but you get to do that as well. So, you get to wear many hats.
I cannot rave about Central Michigan University women's basketball enough. Heather Osterly and her coaching staff and the team. It really is a delight for me that I get to do baseball April through September, take October off, and then go November through March with CMU women's basketball. What a powerhouse.
Wow, boy, I am envious of you, Jesse. And I don't know, did you see the news today that the MAC is going to, they did away with the divisions for basketball this year?
I did see that. I'm curious to see, and all the different things, no postseason tournaments for certain sports. Mm-hmm. I'm curious to see how everything is when the athletic season comes about next year. I'm curious to see how everything takes place.
Well, Jesse, I'll just leave it at this. I just want to thank you again for coming on. I know these are kind of trying times for you. it's just got to be difficult when you don't know what, when your season's going to begin, if it will begin. And we're thinking about you because we want the games to be back, even maybe towards the end of the year if we can get some fans there. But I know for a lot of people, I speak for them when I say there's nothing like listening to you call a game on a warm summer night outside, with an adult beverage or a ginger ale. And we hope that you get back at it soon.
Well, thank you very much. We understand why there's no baseball right now. Everybody stay safe, be healthy, be vigilant. When baseball returns, I'll be ready to get right back to the microphone.
Oh, I forgot. I would be remiss. I've been asking all my guests too. This is with this COVID, I've had a lot of opportunity with my day job being down for a while to have extra shows. But I want to ask you, I've asked all my other guests, what is your favorite ballpark that you've ever been to, either to broadcast a game or watch a game? And what was the first professional game you ever went to?
The very first professional game that I went to was a Baltimore Orioles game at Memorial Stadium in 1989. They were taking on the Texas Rangers. Kevin Brown was on the mound. My father brought me to the game, and I was overcome by the heat. I got very overheated, and we had to leave early. So that's what I remember from my first game. It was hot in the thick of summertime. And then I guess my very favorite stadium that I've ever been to, besides Oriole Park at Camden Yards, since I'm a Marylander, boy, I really love Fort Wayne's Parkview Field. I think it's glorious.
I've heard a lot of people say the same thing, Jesse. That's amazing. Well, again, thank you for your stories. Thank you for taking time out tonight. Be safe, and I guess enjoy the rest of your summer, and hope we can talk to you again down the road sometime.
That would be great. Thank you very much for having me on.
All right, Jesse. Jesse Goldberg-Strassler, the play-by-play voice of the Lansing Lugnuts, the single-A affiliate of the Toronto Blue Jays. Again, very gracious with his time here tonight on the Captain Lou Extravaganza. Well, we're going to take a break. When we come back, we'll give you some more of our NFL picks. We'll go through some of our division picks. We went through the NFC North, and we said the Lions, the Packers, and the Vikings all at 9-7. And the Bears at 5-11, but we will continue with those. But again, thanks to Jesse Goldberg-Strassler. I'll tell you what, if you get a chance, once baseball starts back up, and hopefully at the minor league level it does this year, get a chance, listen to one of his broadcasts. He's the minor league broadcaster of the year for 2019, and justifiably so. He does a whale of a job. He does a little bit of everything there. He leads Take Me Out to the Ball Game in the 7th inning. And he's really involved with the community. And again, I really I invite you to check out one of their games. I know they're on WVFN.com, 730thegame.com. I know that's their flagship station. You can listen to it that way. But again, like I told them, there's nothing like listening to a ball game on a warm summer night with the radio on, be it the Lugnuts, be it your favorite professional team. But I love listening to minor league baseball as well. It's great to listen to in the summertime. So we're going to step aside. We'll be back with more. You're watching the Captain Lou Extravaganza live here on the 12-Ounce Sports Network.
Nothing makes us happier at Lexington Law than when our clients cancel our services. Listen to this client call and see what we mean.
Lexington Law Firm, this is Erin.
I would like to cancel my account.
I'm sorry to hear that.
No, don't be. Actually, you guys have done tremendous work for me, and I was working with you for several years now, and my goal was to get a mortgage written by the end of this year, and I just got that mortgage commitment.
That is wonderful.
My credit went from like 440 working with you guys to 700.
Nice.
And I got a very good 4.25% 30-year fixed rate mortgage. I have nothing at all bad to say. If you ever want me to write a testimonial, well, I will. As a matter of fact, I've recommended you to a lot of friends.
Lexington Law has served over 500,000 clients, taking expert action on their credit that has led to the removal of millions of questionable negative items from their credit reports. Call now and learn more about how Lexington Law may be able to help you in the removal of negative items from your credit report, such as collections, late payments, charge-offs, and many others. Call Lexington Law today.
Drinkade, ready for distribution worldwide.
Esports are here to stay. Go to jazzsports.ag, log into your account, and look for our new esports section on the top of your screen. Browse through all the different available matches and watch them live with our exclusive esports betting platform. Get instant access to game results, pending and graded bet reports, outright bet types, and upcoming match schedules, all at the easy reach of your fingertips. Jazz Sports puts you in the game.
Hey everybody, welcome back to the program here on the Captain Lou Extravaganza Live here on the 12-Ounce Sports Network. Again, thanks to Jesse Goldberg-Strassler, the play-by-play voice of the Lansing Lugnuts, the Toronto Blue Jays single A affiliate, for taking time out to talk a little baseball with us tonight. Again, a little bit of light in the tunnel, at the edge of the tunnel, with the announcement by the governor of Arizona that they can start Major League Baseball starting this weekend. So they can get the process going on that. Now, if we can just get the owners and the players to come to an agreement on when to start the season and get all the financial particulars out of the way and the health and safety particulars, how they're going to do it, hopefully we can get going and get a Major League season somewhat going by the 4th of July. And, you know, again, for folks like Jesse and the ball players at the minor league levels, you know, it's like he said, it's going to be tough. Major League Baseball is more worried about the top of the chart before they start worried about the lower leagues. And it just, hopefully we can get somewhat of a season for the minor league level, even if it maybe is pushed ahead a little bit. I don't know. It's going to be, it's anybody's guess. But first of all, what we've got to do is get the major leagues going first. Hopefully they can iron out whatever differences they have and get the ball rolling on that as well. So it was great talking baseball with Jesse. He's a fountain of information, I got to tell you, and he's a great announcer, great play-by-play man, and he's been with the Lugnuts. Gosh, I think now this will be his 11th or 12th year, as I think he mentioned, in Lansing, and definitely a treasure for the Lugnuts for sure. Well, let's keep going. We've got a few minutes. Our next guest is going to be in about 8 minutes. Matt Gamlin's going to join us, my old tag team partner. He's my wrestling guru. He's about as knowledgeable as they come when it comes to professional wrestling. And we're going to get Matt on here at the top of the hour. But let's see if we can't go through some of our predictions. At least we can get through the NFC East. Now, I've got Philadelphia. I still have them with 10 wins. I'm not sold on the Cowboys. Their schedule, again, now I don't know. I know Dallas getting CeeDee Lamb. Again, that was a great pick at 17. I think it's huge. Their offense has no excuse for not being great or in the top 5. But I'm not sold on their defense. But we'll get to their schedule in a moment. I look at this Eagles schedule, and I can see 10 wins out of it. And they open up at the Redskins. They're getting a road game at the right time, because I think they can win there. That's a winnable game. The Redskins, to me, I think they're a mess right now. Ron Rivera, we're going to see how good of a coach he really is, but he's inherited a mess, and it's going to take a while. And I think getting the Redskins at the beginning of the year is good on the road, and that's what Philadelphia has got. So I see them winning their first 3 games. They got the Rams at home. It'll be tough, but it's winnable. The Bengals, I've got no faith in Cincinnati. So that's 3-0 right from the get-go. And now you've got the 49ers and the Steelers. Those are 2 difficult road games right there. So even if they drop those, I've got them losing both of those to go to 3-2. Then after that, I've got the Ravens, the Giants, and the Cowboys at home. Now, at worst, I think the Eagles are going to go 2-1. There's a good possibility they could sweep. Now, the Ravens to me are a Super Bowl team. I'm going to put it out there right now. It's going to come down to them or Kansas City out of the AFC. I don't think that's a revelation by any stretch. This is going to be a tough home game. I could see Philadelphia losing this and going to 3-3, but then I see them bouncing back with 2 home wins to go to 5-3. Now, I think they could possibly win their next 2 road games or split at worst, the Giants and the Browns. So we'll say 6-4. Seahawks, they can win that one. It's a Monday night game, 7-4. I think they go to Green Bay and lose that one, 7-5. Then they got the Saints at home. That's a winnable game at home. They finish at home with the Redskins, 9-5. Sandwiched in with 2 road games at the Cardinals and at the Cowboys. Now, I honestly think that they can beat the Cardinals on the road. The Cowboys game, there's going to be a lot on the money for that one, and I could see them losing that one. So that's where I get 10 wins. The 2 wild card games, as far as I go on their schedule, is going to be that Cardinals game on December 20th, and also possibly that road game against the Browns. Like I said, I think there's a good possibility they could sweep those 2 road games or even sweep those 3 home games. I think they're that good. But that gives me Philadelphia with 10 wins, and that's why I think they're going to be a 10-6 team. Then you go after that with the Dallas Cowboys. Now, I've got them at 9-7. Now, I'm going to look through their schedule real quick. Let's go through it. First game on the road on a Sunday night, opening up a brand new arena, and that, of course, is at Los Angeles. I see them losing that one. Home to the Falcons, that's a win, home opener. They go to Seattle, they're going to lose that. That's 1-2. Now, they got 2 home games, 3 home games in a row. They're going to fatten up on these teams. I could see the Cowboys starting out 4-2. They split their next 2 road games, Redskins and Eagles. I honestly see the Redskins as a 3-win team. So that's going to put me at 5-3. So, I mean, they're right there. The Steelers game, that's going to go either way right there. So if they're going to lose a home game, that could be the home game they lose. So we'll say 5-4. Then they go to the Vikings. And that's 5-5. They got the Redskins at home, 6-5. They go to the Ravens on a Thursday night game, 6-6. The Bengals, they'll win. That's a road game that they will have, 7-6. Now here's the game right here. I think Dallas' season is going to come down to this game on December 20th. It's a Sunday night game at home against the 49ers. Dallas could possibly win out on these 3 games and go to 10-6. Because they finish up with the Eagles at home, which I think they're going to win. And if they're going into New York at 9-6, then I think they win that one. If they go in there at 8-7, we all know how the Cowboys are at the end of the year. They find ways, they snatch defeat out of the jaws of victory all the time. I don't see them beating the 49ers at home. And I think they sweep. They finished 9-7 is what I'm getting at. They could go to 10-6. That 49ers game is such a wild card, in my opinion. And the other game that's a wild card, I believe, is the that Cardinals game at home. I mean, they could very easily start out 2-3, or 3-3 out of their first 6 games. 4 of them are at home. They do that, then Dallas is in for a world of hurt. Now, I love getting Mike McCarthy in. I think that's a great hire, but I just don't see it. Dallas has to prove to me that they know how to win the big game when it counts. Yes, they've gotten in the playoffs. Yes, I know Dak's got all the numbers, but he is not a great quarterback because he hasn't won a road game in the playoffs, and Dallas didn't do anything last year to impress me. Now, I'm not worried about Dallas getting Dak locked up in a contract. Now, I did read where they offered him $35 million a year, 106 guaranteed. If he doesn't take that, he's a damn fool. And I said that on Twitter. That 106 million guaranteed for a quarterback that, he's very good. He's not great. He's not elite. I'm sorry, he's not. They haven't won anything. But I think this schedule right now shows me a 9-7 team. And then I look at the other 2 teams, New York and Washington. Neither one of them throws the fear of God in me. I could see Trevor Lawrence ending up in Washington. I mean, I look at this. They start out with the Eagles, that's a loss. At the Cardinals, at the Browns, 2 losses. Then they got the Ravens and the Rams. They're staring down the barrel at an 0-6 start. They get the Cowboys at home. 0-7. I mean, you're looking at an 0-7 start before the bye week. Then they got the Giants at home. There's a win. They go to the Lions. Then they got the Bengals. They're at the Cowboys, Steelers, and 49ers. I'm telling you, they're looking at a 2-11 start before they get to, with 3 games left. Seahawks and Panthers, they might split those to get to 3-12. Then they're at the Eagles to wrap up the season. You're looking at 3-13 staring Washington right in the face. I'm sorry. Haskins, to me, has to prove. But even if he does play good, you've got Adrian Peterson, who is going to be a mentor to Dobbins. Okay, that's great. But what else do they have? They've got nothing. So I can see a 3-win team there, 3-13 for sure. And the Giants, we can look at their schedule. You tell me where the New York Giants are. They've got more than 5 wins on this schedule. They're going to have Daniel Jones is in his second year. He's got one of the best weapons in the backfield with Saquon Barkley. They start out at home against the Steelers. Loss. On the road to Chicago. Probably a loss. Season opener for the Bears. 49ers at home, a loss. Rams and Cowboys back-to-back on the road. They're looking at 0-5. I mean, it's ugly. It is ugly. Well, let's go back to our guest line, and we will now invite our old tag team partner, the OG of the Captain Lou and Matt show, our very own Matt Gamlin. Matt, welcome back. Hey, how's everything going?
Going great. Good to be back once again.
Absolutely. It's an absolute thrill. And just so you know, I am not going to give up on my bet. I will have a peanut butter sandwich. I'm pumping myself up to do it. And it's funny.
You just got to mentally prepare yourself for it.
Well, all I'm going to do is I'm going to do that old trick that my dad did with that time when I had to eat meatloaf up in Canada with all our relatives. I'll have a big old glass of milk right next to me. I'll wolf it down and I'll drink it. But Otis, AJ, what the hell are you doing? But overall,
he's got gloves on.
I know it.
How do you get Butterfingers?
It's fixed. I'm telling you, it's fixed. They knew that I was going to have to eat peanut
think this
butter.
Whole wrestling thing isn't real.
What? Don't be raining on my parade, Matt. Come on.
Oh.
Well, if we can get serious on this, let's start with the pay-per-view. I got to tell you, Matt, I've watched wrestling. I've told you this 100 times. I've watched it now for just about 50 years, and I've seen a lot of great shows. I've seen some that aren't real good, and I've seen a couple of stink bombs here and there. And I'm not going to call this pay-per-view a stink bomb, but I just had the impression, Matt, overall, that they treated this like a throwaway pay-per-view.
I didn't quite get the same thoughts. On the whole, I actually didn't mind the pay-per-view. I think one thing that they really had going for them, one thing that really popped into my mind was how short it was. And maybe that's what made it feel like such a throwaway. But, can you really do a 4-hour pay-per-view right now? And maybe that also, though, it kept the more important matches with more heat on the show.
Well, okay, I can go along with that. That's one of the things I will say I liked about it. I don't know. I mean, there really wasn't a whole lot you could do, Matt, I guess, with trying to, I was thinking about it after it was over, and I thought, okay, who are they really going to take the belt off of? Drew McIntyre, Braun Strowman. You made a great case for Braun Strowman to keep it. Were they going to take it away off the New Day? So I think that might have been the only one. That match might have been the only one where I think the title would have changed hands. But,
yeah,
I guess coming from that, and, the only thing I wish they would have done maybe a little bit more with the Money in the Bank ladder matches was a little more action once they got up to the top in the ring. But
yeah, that's true. I can see why they didn't, because that was just after all that brawling at the end, at the beginning part. But I think just in general with this like post WrestleMania pay-per-view, it's always tough to book because typically you're not going to see many titles change hands. So how do you keep it exciting? So it's actually a pretty smart move to put Money in the Bank there. So you always have that novelty and suspense of that gimmick match.
Well, let's go through the matches. We'll get this one. We'll go with the SmackDown Tag Team Championship match. The New Day, The Miz and John Morrison, the Forgotten Sons, and the Lucha House Party. I'm not surprised at the outcome, like I said. The New Day I thought looked strong. I thought The Miz and Morrison looked strong. Overall, I thought that wasn't too bad of a match for, it's tough, in my opinion, sometimes. It really is difficult to have a fatal four-way with the tag teams. I don't know. Maybe it's just me. Maybe there's too much going on, but I thought they did a pretty good job with that.
I don't know. To me, like, definitely not a bad match, but I've seen better. They've been able to do some really good fatal four-way tag team matches. I think the one back in like SummerSlam 2015 was really good. That opened the show. The crowd was hot the whole time. But, definitely not a bad match, but it didn't really do anything for me. Lucha House Party looked really strong. They got a lot of offense in. And, the result, as you just said, never really in doubt.
Well, and then we had the short match, kind of a filler match with Bobby Lashley and R-Truth. It was originally going to be set up for MVP, but Lashley came out and just, he took over the set. And I think it's set up, especially after last night with Monday Night Raw, with what happened there. I think Lashley, you and I might have touched on this a little bit. I think he's going to start getting a better push, and I think he's going to start looking stronger and stronger. I don't know if they're going to set him up with Drew McIntyre down the road, but this was never going to be in doubt. I feel sorry for R-Truth having to be in a squash match, but he plays the part well.
Yeah, he did. It gets bonus points for me just because how the little bits of entertainment they did manage to put in that, because Truth is just amazing. But Bobby, yeah, I agree with Bobby. He's gonna get that push, and he's in the midst of it now. I think putting him with MVP is just an awesome idea.
Oh, I agree, and I think you might see a stable with that. That's something we can talk about down the road where they set something up maybe with some of the other wrestlers. But, I think that's a perfect spot for MVP. I just think his wrestling days, for the most part, are over. And I don't know if you watched Raw last night when they were talking about how it was 13 years ago when they were talking about being together 13 years ago. And I thought, man, that seems like it doesn't seem like it was that long ago.
It's insane. And just how really they were both like really paralleling. They were both at the beginning of their careers in WWE and trying to make their rise.
Well, the next match I want to talk about is the SmackDown Women's Championship match with Bayley and Tamina. We both said on Friday that we thought Bayley would win. My only thing was I thought that there might be a little more edge between the two, between Sasha Banks and Bayley. That's the only thing that surprised me about it. I thought Tamina, she showed herself pretty good. It's just to me it was never in doubt. The ending was kind of weird with that crucifix pin. But hey, a win's a win. Bayley still looks strong out of it. And I think it's evident down the road both of them might go after each other, Bayley and Banks. But for this night, I thought Bayley looked pretty good.
Yeah, no, result was never in doubt with that. Bayley looked strong again. Tamina, this is probably the best she's looked potentially ever. I railed on her before, but like now that they're actually putting some time into her, she's looking a lot better. But the finish was a little odd, but ultimately it made sense. Nobody looks too weak, especially in the case of Tamina in defeat. It's like it makes sense.
Yeah.
And then, the post-match beatdown builds more sympathy for her, gets more heat on Bayley, whatnot. I guess I wasn't too surprised to see more build on that potential rivalry just yet. I think they're going to push that back a bit more, maybe in a more closer time to SummerSlam.
I believe that. I can go along with that. I don't see anything as far as those two getting together on the next pay-per-view. I think you might see a little build from that pay-per-view. I agree with you 100%. The next match I want to talk about is the Universal Championship match with Braun Strowman and Bray Wyatt. For a split second there, they had me. I honestly thought that Bray Wyatt was going to come out on top. I thought it was a very entertaining match. I like how they did that with the Black Sheep match, or mask, I mean. And I love what Braun Strowman did. But I think it strengthened Braun Strowman's character, and it made him look strong and more believable to be able to hang on to the strap a little bit longer. But I like what they did at the end with, cutting out to the Fiend a little bit. But I thought it was a pretty good match, that one.
Yeah, I mean, my favorite part about The Fiend is just the storytelling involved, because it's really, if you really try to look into it, there's just so much there. There's so much continuity involved there. And that loss, it just further, damages Bray Wyatt. And it makes having him wrestle as Firefly Funhouse Bray, it makes that make a lot more sense.
Mm-hmm.
So he didn't want to sicken Fiend on him.
Right.
But yeah, it was a good match. I think we'll see better between the two though as this rivalry progresses. I was expecting a little bit more chicanery, but that's just nitpicking. But a solid match, and the real story is what's after it.
Yeah.
When Bray is just really distraught, just sitting in the corner, which I thought was such a great touch.
Well, we talked about
great production there.
Oh, 100%. We talked about it on Friday, and I want to bring it up again. In the last few years, I don't know if I know of a professional wrestler that can put on this type of the show that he's been putting on, be able to pull it off like he does, being himself, and then the Fiend. I think it's a great angle, and I think he's underrated as a talent as far as that goes.
Yeah, and I mean the thing with Fiend is that he could always do everything to the best of his ability and do it well. The problem is that they just didn't give him much to work with. He was spinning his wheels for so long. I was bored with him for a long time. I lost a lot of interest in him. He just needed something fresh to really sink his teeth into, and he also needed good booking again.
Yeah.
Once he got those two things, people are interested in him again with good reason. I mean, he's awesome to watch.
Well, like you said, I hope that they do get a kind of a slow build, at least through SummerSlam with the Fiend and with Strowman, before they maybe decide to take the strap off of Strowman and give it to the Fiend if that's indeed what they're looking at. And we can go from there maybe.
Yeah, we'll see if they can stretch it out that far.
It's going to be tough, but I think they might be able to. I think that's probably where it'll culminate. I forgot about this match. I didn't get to see it. I just read about it. Was the kickoff match with Hardy and Cesaro. I give Cesaro credit for helping put Jeff Hardy over. It bothers me because I just think Cesaro, sooner or later, he's got to get that push. I just think he's such a good performer. You talk about someone that's not utilized enough in my mind, and that's Cesaro. I just think he's such a talent, and I just think it's, in my opinion, has gone to waste a little bit. And Jeff Hardy, it's great. I had a feeling he would win. Now let's see him go let's do a program with Sheamus, and I'm interested to see what they do with Cesaro now.
Yeah, no, 100% with Cesaro. The guy he's one of the best in the company. And really one of the most reliable workers in the company as well. I mean, look at that match, with Mansoor, or when he wrestled on that NXT UK TakeOver pay-per-view. He makes everybody look so good. And when it's time for him to shine, he looks like $1 million because that's just how he did. That's just what he does, But yeah, it's baffling to me how he still hasn't gotten that main event push yet. He's worthy of it. He connects with the crowd. And I've always liked Jeff Hardy. The guy, he's a natural underdog babyface. And I've always liked Hardy. This is a match that has no business being on a kickoff, which is the thing which I think is the biggest takeaway for me.
Yeah. Oh, I agree. And for all the problems that Jeff Hardy's had, personal injury, whatnot, he's going to have a share of injuries because the guy's a maniac. Yeah. I mean, he takes these high-risk maneuvers, as Gorilla Monsoon used to always say, and it just, sooner or later, he's going to get banged up. And I just think for what he's put himself through and he's still able to do it, I'm all about that. I agree with you 100%. It just, I hope that they can maybe, I don't know, spotlight him a little bit more. My question is going to be in the long run, and I know it's early, is how far do you think he's going to go? I just don't know if he's main event, Universal Championship material. Maybe one more time, but I think that's going to be a ways down the road if he can stay healthy.
Yeah, I mean, it just depends on the build that he gets. Mm-hmm. But, the question is, will they make that investment? And to me, I don't think they will.
That's a great point, Matt. You're right. They've got too much invested in some of the other bigger guys, stature-wise and also, physicality-wise as well. The last singles match we'll talk about, of course, was the WWE Championship, which I think was probably the match of the night as far as quality. Drew McIntyre and Seth Rollins. I just thought, boy, they give it 110%. They're both great workers, and it was a very, very good match. And again, they almost had me. I thought for a second there that they were going to take it off of McIntyre, but again, that finish that he had was, holy cow, that Claymore kick. That was amazing, in my opinion. And both guys put on what I think was an A match in that one.
Yeah, that was a great match. Definitely enjoyed watching that. It's a shame that matches like that can't get a crowd right now, mm-hmm. because it would have had them on their toes the whole time. It was a great match between two guys that can deliver.
Okay, so we'll talk about Raw in a moment, but the last match, of course, were the two matches that happened at the same time, the Money in the Bank ladder matches. Again, I guess I should maybe apologize for saying it was a throwaway pay-per-view because some of the matches were good. I guess the throwaway part to me was I knew the outcome of just about all of them, except for this right here. I wasn't expecting Asuka to win. I honestly thought it was going to be, like I said, I think Lacey Evans, I really thought she was going to do it. I see why they did it now, but that one surprised me a little bit, but nothing surprised me more than Otis with the briefcase. But the high point to me, I think, was when AJ Styles when they went into Daniel Bryan went into Vince McMahon's office. I thought that was funny. What was
that was great.
What was the high point of those ladder matches for you?
Oh man, probably the Brother Love spot.
That was good too.
That was good. Asuka, I was really happy to see that. I wasn't expecting it, but mm-hmm. that was good to see, and it makes all the more sense knowing what we know now. And Otis was a complete swerve.
100%.
Never would have predicted that. Which, you know what? Okay, let's see what they do here. I'm going to remain open to this. And I heard apparently on an interview that he was on just before the event aired, he said that, if he were to get the briefcase, he would go for the tag titles. So I wonder if we'd see something with that, which would be interesting. Give a much needed boost to a division mm-hmm. that's mostly entrenched in the mid card.
Wow. I never thought of that. Well, that makes sense, Matt. Who knows? Maybe they will do something different like that.
Yeah. I mean, the question is, would they, to me?
I don't know. And that's just the thing. I guess it's like you said about some of the other wrestlers earlier. It depends on the direction and the push they can get. And, how the crowd plays into it too, and I think that might have something to do with it. It's going to be very interesting to see because I don't see him cashing in on The Fiend or Strowman if they were to go at SummerSlam, or unless they start. I guess that leads into my next question. From Monday Night Raw last night, of course, we had the Becky Lynch announcement, which we'll talk about in a second, but they're going to start doing inter-brand matches again. And who knows, maybe that's something where it could lead to him doing a cash-in on Raw. I doubt it, but...
Yeah, it just, I don't see him cashing in on Strowman or Fiend. I don't really see it happening with Drew. That's what makes me to think it's going to be a mid-card title or tag team. Yep. But the whole Wild Card 2.0 thing, I groan at it. It's purely just to increase ratings, which is, to me, I don't think that's going to happen. There's not much they can do right now. The shows just aren't as watchable without that crowd.
Oh, I agree. And I think I really feel bad for Becky Lynch last night. Just think if she would have been able to make that announcement in front of 15,000 people.
Yeah.
A Monday after a pay-per-view. I mean, she deserved that. And it was genuine, and it brought tears to me. I'm not going to, I'm not ashamed to admit it. I was like, wow. You knew something was up, because she hadn't been wrestling. And, you hear rumors, but once she came out the way she did it, I'm like, holy cow, and just like you said with the match with, Drew McIntyre and Seth Rollins, that also deserved to have 20,000 screaming people behind it because they would have been. And, it's tough right now. You brought up a very good point, Matt. With the situation we're at right now, it's just very difficult to be able to do something.
Yeah, absolutely. It's hard. And like that, I remember seeing on Twitter that I didn't see it live. I actually saw it on Twitter first and then watched it. It's like, what? But yeah, just, man, what a shocker. And it made, and man, the embrace between her and Asuka was amazing.
Yep, they did that one right. And they're both, they're at the top of their game. I can see Becky Lynch coming back maybe at, Royal Rumble next year or possibly a WrestleMania moment or something, and then continuing maybe. Hard to say. It could be SummerSlam. It could be a year and a half from now. You never know. But she'll be back, I think. And, some of the things that I took away from Raw last night, Matt, real quick, we got about 4 minutes, is at the end of it, I was able to see somewhat of the confrontation, or, the verbal confrontation between Randy Orton and Edge. Now, I see that he challenged him to just a regular wrestling match. How far do you see this storyline going between these two guys?
Based on the progression they're going, I feel like this will probably be the last match. Maybe. It would make sense because where do you go from that one, unless Randy were to win?
Yeah.
And then they have a rubber match, which could happen. Randy could play the part of a devious heel and get a cheap victory by some illegal means, which, would be really clever since he's challenging him to this wrestling match, So we'll see. I think at most you'd see like one more match after this.
My prediction with this, and it could be a possible final confrontation at SummerSlam. It could be inside a cage or something like that, just to put this to rest, because I think that's where it's going to be. And then, I look at Seth Rollins, what he's doing right now, and I guess maybe Vince McMahon's doing a good job with this because I have no idea where he's going. I mean, the Monday Night Messiah, his role right now, I don't know. I don't know if he's going to try to go after Drew McIntyre again, or if he's going to, turn on his partner. I don't know. I'm really interested to see what they do with him and with AJ here in the summer coming up.
Yeah, no, Seth's work on Monday was really interesting. It left a lot of question marks, which, good job on WWE's part. It's going to get people to tune in, hopefully. But yeah, just a lot of directions they could go with this.
Yeah, and then with AJ, I know there's still. Do you think there's a chance they're building something back up between him and The Undertaker for a rematch somehow?
It looks like it, honestly, and I'd be in favor of seeing it. If anybody's going to help Undertaker do a good match, it would be AJ.
I agree, and I think I think that could be where they're heading. Well, Matt, I appreciate you taking time out. I got to let you go here in a moment, but any other surprises that you got out of the last couple of days, Sunday and Monday?
Otis winning.
Yeah. So my other thing is
enjoy that peanut butter sandwich.
I will film it and I'll send it to you. I will pay off my bet, and I'll make sure to send you a video of that because that's going to be ugly. Matt, as always, thank you for taking time out tonight and joining us here on the show. And enjoy the rest of your week, and I'll talk to you real soon.
Yeah, good to be on. Thank you.
You bet. Matt Gamlin, my old tag team partner, one half of the old Captain Lou and Matt show that used to be on. We used to be on every other Saturday night. We would talk pro wrestling and football for a couple of hours, and Matt's my go-to guy, him and Philly Pete for all things WWE and AEW. And interesting time now for pro wrestling, as with everything else that's going on in our world as far as sports and sports entertainment. I don't know. We're running out of things as far as pro wrestling. Are they going to be able to start going in front of live crowds? I know that's the talk, but the pay-per-view, Matt talked me into it a little bit where maybe it was better than I thought. Once you think about the matches or whatever, I guess that they weren't all that bad, but I'm still kind of a head scratcher on the Money in the Bank ladder matches. Now, as he mentioned, with Becky Lynch, I can see why they did it. Well, we're going to step aside. Coming up after the break, we should be joined by Sean Bednard. He is the voice of Marksman's Hockey, Fayetteville Marksman out of the Southern Professional Hockey League. We'll see what's going on his world. But you're watching the Captain Lou Extravaganza live here on the 12-Ounce Sports Network.
Esports are here to stay. Go to jazzsports.ag, log into your account, and look for our new esports section on the top of your screen. Browse through all the different available matches and watch them live with our exclusive esports betting platform. Get instant access to game results, pending and graded bet reports, outright bet types, and upcoming match schedules, all at the easy reach of your fingertips. Jazz Sports puts you in the game.
Drinkade, ready for distribution worldwide.
Nothing makes us happier at Lexington Law than when our clients cancel our services. Listen to this client call and see what we mean.
Lexington Law Firm, this is Erin.
I would like to cancel my account.
I'm sorry to hear that.
No, don't be. Actually, you guys have done tremendous work for me, and I was working with you for several years now. And my goal was to get a mortgage written by the end of this year, and I just got that mortgage commitment.
That is wonderful.
My credit went from like 440 working with you guys to 700.
Nice.
And I got a very good 4.25% 30-year fixed rate mortgage. I have nothing at all bad to say. If you ever want me to write a testimonial, well, I will. As a matter of fact, I've recommended you to a lot of friends.
Lexington Law has served over 500,000 clients, taking expert action on their credit that has led to the removal of millions of questionable negative items from their credit reports. Call now and learn more about how Lexington Law may be able to help you in the removal of negative items from your credit report, such as collections, late payments, charge-offs, and many others. Call Lexington Law today.
And welcome back here to the Captain Lou Extravaganza Live here on the 12-Ounce Sports Network as we roll along here on this Tuesday night. And we're joined now on the other end of our guest line by the voice of the Fayetteville Marksmen of the Southern Professional Hockey League, a fellow CMU alum. Fire up, Chips. Sean Bednar.
Fire up, Chips.
Sean, how the heck are you?
Lou, I'm doing well. I hope the same for you on this beautiful Tuesday night.
Well, you know what? The weather's not too BAD up here right now. I'm doing fantastic. Well, I've asked our guest over the last few days, man, what a crazy world we're living in. Did you think that we wouldn't be talking sports or hockey or anything on the ice right now?
Yeah, it's crazy. I've never, and again, I'm a younger guy, so I haven't been able to see some of the crazy stuff that's happened in the world and how it's affected sports. I was 5 years old when 9/11 happened, so I didn't really get to see or grasp the concept of what had happened. But even just probably about 2 months ago, when things were starting to get underway, I was talking to my dad. He said, he was saying the same thing. It reminded him of the impact that 9/11 had on sports, but on a whole different scale. So this is literally untread ground, and how the sports world reacts, recovers, and moves forward from what's happening now it's going to be cataclysmic, and it's going to change how sports are ran and operated forever.
Well, it really is, and it's anybody's guess on what's going to happen. I had Jesse Goldberg-Strassler on in the first hour, and we talked about the effect it's going to have on the minor league teams, on any sport, yours in baseball.
Yeah.
And he said, well, the one thing you got to keep in mind is that they're more worried about the parent clubs, which is going to be the case in the NHL. I think for your end of it, I think that you'll have more time to recoup. So I still have a feeling you guys are going to have a season. It may start a little bit late, but I think you're going to.
Yeah, and that's kind of you don't want to talk about too many advantages in minor league or an affiliation or anything like that. But the one thing with baseball is for North Carolina, we're looking at moving into phase 2 of a 3-phase plan of reopening the state, which could happen as soon as mid-June. So, for a team like the new team here in Fayetteville, the Fayetteville Woodpeckers, you would think, okay, our state's starting to reopen, they could realistically start to think, what's our next step? But with them, again, they're an A-plus team. So they fall under the affiliation of 3 teams above them who decide, what they do next. Whereas for us, we are kind of, outside of course, our league, we are the masters of our own domain. So, if the NHL weren't to happen, God forbid, and the AHL weren't to happen, and of course that would mean that the ECHL wouldn't happen, that doesn't mean that our league still couldn't operate, because we still have players that we're recruiting ourselves, that we are signing ourselves, that we are coaching, developing, et cetera, all on our own without having, the necessary accord of approval from a higher league. So that's the advantage that we have in this whole situation, alongside, of course, time that we have until our season would get underway. So, for us, it's a waiting game, but we have the advantage of knowing that, if anything does go down, at least we have ourselves that we can fall back on to ensure that sports do happen in our realm of hockey.
Well, that's exciting to hear on your end. I'm happy for you. I really am. I didn't know that. So that's great. I'm glad to hear that. Now, on your team point of view this year, the unfortunate thing was when it ended, you guys were right on top, tied for first in the SPHL. Fayetteville had a great year this year. Talk a little bit about that, the turnaround from the previous year.
Yeah, it's all part of the process, and it was just I don't want to say it was inevitable, because, of course, when you jump from the worst team in the SPHL 2 seasons ago to 2 seasons later being at the mountaintop, that's a crazy turnaround, and it's almost unprecedented. But, when our owner, Chuck, made the hire for Jesse, he knew what he was getting. He knew it wasn't going to be, much of a work in progress. He knew, all this guy needed was a shot. He had learned under a great system in Huntsville and Glenn DeTulio. He's played in this league, so he knows this league. And, for him, it was just about getting that chance and that opportunity. He came to Fayetteville. He literally had to build it from the ground up. So year one, you see the team starting to take a little bit of identity, shaking up exactly what it's going to mean to play Fayetteville hockey, setting his culture, setting the attitude that he wants for his team. And the team made the playoffs. And, people can say that it was at the 8th seed, but, it was 2 points, 3 points away, whatever it was, from the number 5 seed. So it's the exact same thing. So, he brings in one of his former players, Corey Melkert, to join him as an assistant coach. And they immediately hit with a great chemistry. They hit the ground running as soon as the season ends, find all the best players that they can, talk to them, make sure that they know that Fayetteville is a great place to play just because, or not just because, it's a great city or because, they made the playoffs last year, but because of the culture, the attitude. And, at the end of the day, they do want players to come here who, want to stay marksmen, but at the same time, they want players who want to know that they can use Fayetteville as a jumping point for them because of, for us, we had 17 or 18 players who were called up to the ECHL this year.
Wow.
If you're looking at recruiting for next season, they're going to say, wow, if I really want to develop my hockey career, I should go to Fayetteville. So they came in, they set a standard, they set a principle, they got a lot of core veteran guys back, and, they were able to put together a team that was talented for sure, but had depth. And it was so deep that it wasn't just at a skill level or a talent level, but again, at that cultural level. So, if we lost 4 players in a week, the veteran leadership was able to bring in these new guys and say, this is how we operate. This is the way that we run our system. This is the way that they run our team. Let's go out there and play. And he saw it, and it was crazy because, we'd lose our star goalie and our backup goalie who became our stud to end the season, Blake Wajtela, hadn't played a game in the first 9 games. Suddenly he's the number 1 guy, and he comes in and, it's business as usual for the marksmen. They trust what they have back in the goal. They have a great defense in front of them, and the offense does what it does. So hats off, of course, to Jesse and Corey for what they did. They put together an outstanding leadership core on the ice. They found the right pieces, right attitude guys, and, guys who, even if they weren't the most skilled, they developed here. And I think, not to throw a little bit of nepotism into it, but, a guy like my cousin Shane Bednard, when he first got to the Marksmen, he didn't have those reps in college. He played a smaller amount of games than you would like to see for somebody coming into play at, Tier 4 pro hockey. But, he came in here, he cut his teeth, he started to develop, and by the end of the season, he was named to the all-rookie team for the SPHL. So that development and that ability to fail and grow was set in place from the leadership core and from the coaching core. So it's just the attitude and the culture that Corey and Jesse have developed here is, it's rubbed off in a huge way, and hats off to him, of course, for being named Coach of the Year in the SPHL, a well-deserved honor for sure. But the future is bright here in Fayetteville, and I think we were all looking at that same thing, that last series before everything was going to before everything did get canceled, where Peoria was going to come to town. It was going to be the Titan battle of the number 1 and number 2 team. And you look at that, it's like whoever comes out of there still standing most likely is going to be the team that takes the Coffee Trophy as the regular season champs. But, that's not the storyline that we got. And now it just builds that hunger in everybody's stomach going to next season of, okay, this is what we could have accomplished. What are we going to do now?
Well, I was just going to say that, Sean. I mean, yeah, it's disappointing. Everybody's been through it. And I think now the disappointment has rubbed off. And now you're right. It sounds like that they've got the right mindset for next year. I look at the stats that some of you guys have, Brian Bowen, Max Cook, your cousin Shane, and Taylor McCloy. Some great numbers, plus and the plus minus on these guys, incredible, man. And,
yeah.
That a testament. And the goaltending you talked about, Blake Wajtela, 920 save percentage. Those are huge numbers, man.
Yeah. Yeah, our plus-minus numbers are mind-boggling. Like, you put them up against any other team in the league, and, it's night and day. And it's just, again, it goes back to, of course, the depth that we have, but it also goes to just the pure skill that we have. And, when you're putting your top gunners out there, they're working as the top gunners. They're not getting scored against. They're making sure that when they're out there, they're making their impact known. And you look at a guy like Brian Bowen, he was traded over here from Pensacola, and wasn't getting the chance to really operate, wasn't getting the chance to get his reps in. And he's a talented guy. He played USHL. He played at University of Vermont. So, he's got the ability underneath of him. And he came here, he got the chance, he had a great rookie season. And then he comes into this season, he has the most goals in the SPHL. So he's a guy that anytime you saw him on the ice, you know he was going to get a feed from Cookie. You know that McCloy was going to give him something. And he was almost always burying to the back of the net. So the plus-minus numbers are frankly incredible. And especially you look at Taylor McCloy, I believe he led the entire SPHL in the plus-minus numbers. But the numbers are staggering. It's video game numbers for plus-minus, which, of course, is sometimes referred to as either an overrated or underrated statistic, depending on who you're talking to. But I think plus-minus kind of speaks for itself. Good teams have good plus-minuses from their top guys.
Oh, 100%. We're talking to Sean Bednard, the play-by-play voice of the Fayetteville Marksmen of the Southern Professional Hockey League. Sean, it's been a couple of years now you've been with the club, and I know it's been a growing experience for you. Tell us a little bit about what the challenges have been and what you've noticed in a couple of years that have made you stronger.
Yeah, so for us, personnel has kind of been an issue. We've had a lot of people that have came into the organization and left on terms for one reason or another. So, the big thing with any organization, especially when you're talking from a sales standpoint, is sales is all about relationships. And, you look at teams like Huntsville or Knoxville or Pensacola, like what do they do well? Their attendance is phenomenal. Every time you go there, you're looking at 4,000, 5,000 people in the building. But you look at like the staff for like a team like Knoxville, like they've had the same people in place for pretty much since the beginning, 10 years, 15 years. And they have this one amazing product that every single time people go to their games, they know what they're going to get. They're going to get awesome hockey, great environment, great promotion, great concessions at a good price. So it's about consistency for them. And for us, we've grown in so many ways ever since Chuck took over as the owner, the full-time owner, and in his role as team president as well. So for us, building into consistency and kind of rebuilding what the brand of Fayetteville hockey is after, it kind of became devalued in the final years of the Fayetteville Fire Ants, kind of rebuilding it. And, for us, that consistency kind of set in. We finally have like one clear mindset of what we want to do. And it came into fruition this year because just going from last year's numbers to this year's numbers, you look at paid attendance per game, and we were looking at an average increase of plus 500 paid tickets per game.
Wow.
I mean, those are staggering numbers. If you had something like that build every single year, you're talking about attendance taking 1,000-person jump in 2 seasons. So, for us, we're having the consistency come into place. I've been with the organization going into my 3rd season. Marissa, who runs our game day operations in corporate, she's going into her 4th season with the team. She's been there since the beginning. Lucas will be going into his 2nd season. So that's your main core right there. And, of course, Jesse will be going into his 3rd season as well. Corey will be going into his 2nd season. So we're getting pieces in place that are there because they're committed to the brand of Fayetteville hockey. We take great pride in what we've built so far and know that, we've got a ton of room that we have to grow. We finished 7th in attendance in the SPHL this year. And Chuck's philosophy is if we have the number 1 team in the league on the ice, why don't we have the number 1 team in the league off the ice in every facet? Revenue, attendance, everything. So that's the mindset that we come in with. We're not satisfied with where we're at, and we're hungry for the continuous growth. So this was a great year for us in terms of growth, and we had huge expectations for what those final 6 home games were going to look like for us. I'm personally disappointed myself. We had Star Wars night coming up. I'm a huge Star Wars nerd, so I always look forward to that game. We had our mascot's birthday party, which is always one of our biggest nights. We had 24 mascots, I believe, who were booked in to come, including my good friend Chubby Checker from over at the Charlotte Checkers. So, it's devastating to lose those games and, of course, lose the revenue, and for our fans, lose that experience. But, from disappointment, there is growth and there is the ability to succeed. So for us, we go into season 4 as the marksman, and we just know that, if we keep putting our mind to it and we keep grinding, there's going to be continued success.
Well, it sounds like you're heading on the right way. A couple more questions, Sean, and I'll let you go. Do you foresee expansion in your league anytime soon? I know there was some talk of Danbury maybe getting a team, or Dansville. Do you see any expansion in the next year or two?
Yeah, I'm not really sure. The only thing that I could think of would be something that kind of helps us in Roanoke out. Just because, like, when it comes to us, we're a little bit on an island. I know for Roanoke, their closest opponent is us at 3.5 hours, and then Knoxville at about 4.5. And for us, it's Roanoke at 3.5 hours and Macon at 5. So, like, if we could get, like, in my dream scenario, Winston-Salem has their rink put in another 2,000 seats, and then we bring them up to the SPHL. And then Roanoke, Winston-Salem, and Fayetteville are all in one beeline to each other, where it's like a perfect Friday night in Winston-Salem, Saturday night in Roanoke, back home in 4 hours. But that's all on the wish list.
Sure.
As for expansion, I think just with the current state of events, it's tough to say in any league that you would see, any prospect for expansion. But I think, the league that's growing in its legitimacy and its player development and, the way that people are really starting to view it as, not just the should have practiced harder league, but now actually as the Southern Professional Hockey League. I'm sure down the road, we're definitely going to see it. I mean, we see a team like Quad City. They came from the ashes of a long-time ECHL and AHL city. And I think as the business model for the SPHL continues to prove that it can be a profitable one and a high-quality one that can still have players go up to that next level to build legitimacy for what kind of hockey city you can be, but prove to be millions of dollars cheaper than the ECHL. I mean, you look at teams that have dropped out of the ECHL recently, like Manchester, and of course there's always rumors about Norfolk or Wheeling or anything like that. Mm-hmm. And those are teams that are right in the footprint. So pure expansion, it's tough to say yes or no in the coming years, but I think more of what you're going to see is, of course, one of those teams that's at that higher level that's saying, if we can be drawing in the same crowds, making a ton more money, and still having a high-quality brand of hockey, I mean, let's look at the SB. And I know everyone's talked about the murmurings of Savannah, Georgia getting a rink, and, it's 10,000 seats and going to be a huge, beautiful facility, and it'd fit right into the footprint of what the SPHL is doing. That'd be a dream destination, I think, for me and for the SPHL, because I love Savannah. I'd love to spend a weekend there watching hockey and calling some hockey, but we'll see. I think something that would latch the northern teams and help out the East Coast teams a little bit more would be perfect. And I think in your dream scenario, you're getting to 12 teams in the SPHL. You're having 2 divisions of 6, either East and West or North and South. And maybe throw Roanoke in that North, or maybe keep them in the South and have a team like, I don't know, spitballing here like in Kentucky or, maybe another Northern Tennessee team. Kind of take that gap and shorten it a little bit, but we'll see. I think the league has a really good thing going right now. It's got, a lot of profitable franchises. It's growing in legitimacy, and it's a great brand of hockey. So if it sticks to where it is right now at 10 and it continues to operate well, power to them.
I 100% agree with that. I'd rather have you have that with 10 solid cities and 10 solid teams. Last question before I let you go, Sean. What do you think? Are we going to see NHL hockey this summer?
Oh, man, I don't know. You saw the same thing that I did, that the AHL just called it quits on the attempt for a season. So that I think it was inevitable, but it doesn't make it, hurt any less. I know you're a Grand Rapids Griffins fan as well as I am, and I know our good mutual friend Bob Kaiser was surely disappointed that he wasn't able to, finish out his year calling some more hockey. But I'd like to see some way where it's A, safe, and B, plausible that they can have some sort of finale to the season. Because, it's the same way, I know those players, the coaches, the staffs, they put in all that work during the summer, during the fall, and during the winter just to kind of have everything crumble. So if there was some way to do it right where there could be finality, and I've heard the murmurings and rumors of having like a 24-team tournament, or something to decide a Stanley Cup champion. I don't know. I'd like to think that it'd be possible, but I know with some states, and obviously this doesn't affect the NHL. I think it was Oregon that I saw that banned all live sports until September, and obviously cities like New York City, Chicago, they're ones that are definitely suffering more. So I'd like to see it, but I just don't think it's possible or realistic. I'd say at this point, finish it where it is, consider it a catastrophe based on circumstance, Everyone's going to go home disappointed, but if it means that everyone's safe, everyone's sound, players have some finality, staffs can, finally kind of rest on their laurels of, okay, we did our best and we did everything we could. And then, take it home and look ahead to next season and hope that next season does happen, even if it's delayed. At least at that point, there's closure for the fans, there's closure for the teams, and you can just look ahead to the future.
Sean, I appreciate you taking time out of your schedule. Have a great summer, my friend. Stay safe, and I can't wait to get to hearing you back on the mic this fall with the Marksmen. Good luck with your next year coming up there, and again, thanks for coming on the show.
Lou, always a pleasure to talk to you, my friend. If the world returns to a little bit of normality, I'll definitely try and make my way back up to Lansing, and maybe we'll go for a pint at the Grid.
I'm looking forward to it. I'm going to hold you to it, man. Take care, all right, brother? All right, we'll talk to you. Sean Bednard, the voice of the Fayetteville Marksmen of the Southern Professional Hockey League. And I got to tell you, it's like they had a banner year this year, 71 points, tied for first in the league. They've done really well the last couple of years. And I've had the pleasure of working with Sean over the years at the collegiate level with the ACHA. He did such a great job at Central Michigan with their broadcasting department and the production that they put on with the Central Michigan Hockey Network. And then that led to where he's at now with Fayetteville with the Marksmen. And he's going places, man, and he's done really well. And he knows his hockey, and it's always a pleasure to have Sean on the show. Well, hey, that's going to about do it here tonight. Just a programming note, I will not be on the rest of the week during the afternoon. Duty calls with my day job. I get to go back and hustle some pop. So I will see everybody next Tuesday night at 8 o'clock Eastern time for another edition of the show. We'll have a jam-packed couple hours as well. We're going to be joined so far next Tuesday by Mark Van Vliet, the Director of Hockey Operations for Aquinas. We'll get him on. We'll tell some stories from back again in the minor league days of the 70s and whatnot in hockey, and we'll see by then what news we may have with the world of professional sports. So it'll be fun catching up with Mark next Tuesday, and we'll see who else we have lined up. Make sure you check out my Twitter handle, which is @TheRealCaptainLou for the latest on what goes on. Also our Facebook page, which is the Captain Lou Extravaganza. Want to thank Jesse Goldberg-Strassler for joining us here tonight, talking minor league hockey, major league hockey. And again, he's the voice of the Lansing Lugnuts, the Toronto Blue Jays single A affiliate. Great job. He's been there for 11 years and definitely a wealth of knowledge. He was the 2019 minor league baseball play-by-play man of the year and a well-deserved honor. Thanks to Jesse for stopping by. Matt Gamlin, my old tag team partner from back in the day. You talk about a wealth of information on pro wrestling. He is the man to go to, and he stopped by. And we talked over the Money in the Bank pay-per-view. We went through all those particulars, the matches, and what's ahead for the rest of the spring and summer in the WWE. And, of course, Sean Bednard, the voice of Marksman's Hockey out of Fayetteville of the SPHL. So that's going to do it for tonight. We will see you next week, Tuesday, 8 o'clock Eastern Time. This reminder, keep your heads up, keep your sticks down, keep your feet moving. And as always, keep your minds open. Be safe. We'll see you next week. Thanks for joining us here on the Captain Lou Extravaganza here on the 12